I'm Nellie Steele. Hi, I'm Nellie H. Steele, sovereign of suspense and author of Mousse and Murder. This is an original audiobook written by me, produced by Novel Idea Publishing, and read to you by a real human narrator. Enjoy the story.
Mousse and Murder, Affair with Hair, Cozy Mysteries, Book 1. Written by Nellie H. Steele. Narrated by Maya Roberts. Chapter 1. I couldn't believe it. I stared down at the message glaring from my phone before I dumped the device on my kitchen counter in favor of pouring a cup of coffee. As I stirred in the vanilla-flavored creamer, I shook my head, mostly at myself. What had I expected? At my ripe age of... Well, never mind, let's just say I'm old enough to know better. I left my phone behind and swung open the French doors leading to my rear deck. Bright sunshine left me squinting and retreating to seek out my sunglasses before trying again. This time the experience went swimmingly with my bedazzled, oversized, tinted specs slid over my dark blue eyes. I usually got compliments on the color, but having light-colored eyes made the sun sensitivity worse. I sank into the overstuffed cushion on my chaise and kicked my feet up. Beyond the dunes edging my property, the ocean lapped gently at the sandy shore. The sparkling waters barely rippled on this calm morning. The stillness reminded me of small-town life. Nothing ever happened in Crystal Cove, and I do mean nothing. Outside of its picturesque streets and pristine beaches, not a dang thing has ever happened, which is fine by me. Sure, occasionally a tourist may get into a fender bender, but since there are no large hotels within the town limits, even the tourist incidents are feeble at best. The last major happening was when the Halloween festival almost got canceled because someone forgot to order the cider. There was a major uproar. Luckily, Gwen's cousin happened to be an apple farmer with a farm about 2 hours inland. We managed to get a good deal on the cider, and the festival went on. The discussion about that went on until at least Thanksgiving of the following year. That's how little happens in the small beach town of Crystal Cove. But I don't mind. I've lived here for over 2 decades. I managed to snap up my quaint little beach cottage at just the right time. Small, but secluded. It's my little piece of heaven. I have a private beach right out back, and a tiny flower garden on the patch of grass out front. I grow beach roses in pink, white, and purple. The color sets off the sea blue I painted my wood siding. I sipped at my coffee as the water glimmered in front of me. I had a bit of time before I had to be at my shop. I run one of the local hair salons. Actually, I own the best of Crystal Cove's hair salons. Victoria's Affair with Hair is a shining gem in the town's quaint shopping district. My shop is sandwiched between a bookstore and a tea shop. When I opened it 2 decades ago, I had a handful of clients. Now the shop bustled most times of the day. I'd expanded, but managed to maintain that small shop feel that attracted most of my clients. In muted shades with the most comfortable chairs I could find, most of my ladies called Affair with Hair a haven, a place where they could chat with friends, exchange information, and relax. Many of them stopped in for a tea before their appointment. Some of them even visited the bookstore next door for a little reading material while under the dryer. I'd worked hard to make it a business central to my new little town, and I'd succeeded. I'd found the little gem of a seaside sanctuary after a messy divorce had sent me scurrying with only a suitcase and my beat-up old Volkswagen to my name. When I'd left the house, I'd driven away from my old home and never looked back. After a few nights in less-than-desirable motels, I'd stumbled upon the town when my gas meter hit E outside of an empty shop on Main Street. The engine stalled, coughing out a final sputter. I fought to steer the car to the curb and out of the way of traffic. I climbed from the car and kicked the tire, hurting my toe. As I hopped around on one foot, cursing my luck, I bumped into someone behind me. The collision sent us both sprawling onto the pavement. I toppled backward and smacked my head as the contents of my purse scattered around me. I groaned, my features scrunching, as a can of hairspray rolled past me. "Oh, my word," the other woman exclaimed. She hovered over me, the layers of her blonde hair hanging down. Even with the sun glinting behind her, I could tell she needed a new hair color. The bleached blonde washed out her skin and made her look sallow. I didn't know who did her color, but they should have been shot. "Are you okay?" I wrinkled my nose before I groaned. "I think so." "Are you sure? You don't look so good." She must have noticed my reaction to her bad color job. "Yeah, I'm all right." I pushed myself up to sitting while she pressed a phone to her ear. I swiveled around to my hands and knees and started collecting all my things and shoving them back into my worn leather purse. "Oh, don't do that. I'll get it." The woman shoved her phone into her purse and dropped down to a crouch to help me. "Don't worry about it. I've got plenty of time." She slid her green eyes sideways to glance at me while she grabbed my tube of lipstick and a liquid eyeliner. "I just ran out of gas," I confided in her. I didn't know why I told her, but I did. "Oh, no. Well, after a fall like that, you shouldn't be driving anyway." I sat back on my heels and shook my head. "I don't have anywhere to go anyway." "Yes, you do," she said with a nod as she dumped my stuff into my purse. I gave her a wary sideways glance while I stretched for the last of the hair clips that had tumbled almost to the street. "The hospital," she said with a curt nod. I scoffed and pushed myself to my feet. "I don't need to go to the hospital." "Of course you do. You hit your head." I grimaced at the tear in my leggings and brushed off my suede boots. "Oh no," the blonde cried. "I ruined your pants. And now you'll need to go to the hospital and the blouse house." A siren whined in the distance before I could answer. An ambulance swerved around the corner and barreled toward us. The blonde waved her arms in the air. The bus came to a screeching halt, and 2 paramedics leapt out. "Hey, Maxine," the driver said as his partner pulled open the back doors and tugged a stretcher from within. "Where's the Vic?" Maxine waved a manicured nail in my direction. "Here. She hit her head, and she may have bruised or scraped her leg. Her pants are torn." The other medic wheeled the gurney toward me. "Whoa, this is unnecessary," I said. It didn't matter. Within 20 minutes, I sat in the emergency room of the local hospital with Maxine at my side. We chatted to pass the time while I waited for my test results. I was fine, just as I suspected, but I left the hospital with a new lease on life, or at least with a new lease on the building I'd randomly stopped in front of. After spilling my tragic story about my ex, Maxine phoned a friend who phoned a friend who phoned a realtor. They'd been looking for someone to lease the vacant building on Main Street. A short 3 weeks later, I opened my shop with Maxine, now a caramel brunette with warm honey highlights, as my assistant. My business started with a bang and hadn't slowed down yet. It didn't hurt that I was a better stylist than my main rival, Evelyn Marshall. She owned the other salon in town, Evie's Curl Up and Dye. With the dye job she'd given Maxie, she ought to have taken her own advice. Anyway, that's how I ended up with a new salon, a beach house, and a new life in the most boring beach town in the continental United States. I took another sip of my coffee and reached for my phone. I'd left it inside. I clicked my tongue as I swung my legs over the chair and pushed myself out of it. The reason I'd left it inside flooded back into my mind and soured my mood. I swiped the phone off my granite countertop and returned to my comfy chair. I still had over an hour before I would need to get ready to head into the shop. I kicked my feet up, determined to enjoy my morning. But after another sip of coffee, my eyes slid sideways to the phone on the cushion. I stared down at it with a frown deep enough my mother would have scolded that I'd get wrinkles. I picked it up again and reread the last text I received. Be prepared to hear from my attorney. My blood boiled, and I slammed the phone face down on the cushion. My foot tapped the air as I crossed my arms over my chest. I picked up the device twice more, ready to type a scathing response, before I stopped myself. I shouldn't put anything in writing that I didn't want in the public, though I'd really like to give the idiot a piece of my mind. But I didn't need any fuel for the fire if attorneys were involved. Instead, I pressed my thumb against the message and selected forward. The message sailed off through the atmosphere to Maxine. I couldn't wait to hear her response. I finished the rest of my coffee uninterrupted and sighed as I realized it was time to leave my leisurely morning behind and head into the shop. I glanced down at my phone, surprised it hadn't chimed. Was the sound off? I looked at the lock screen. No new messages. Odd. Maxine normally answered right away. I searched my brain to recall if she had an early morning client today. I didn't think so, but maybe I had my days confused. Either way, I'd see her shortly, I figured as I dumped my coffee cup in the sink and headed to my bedroom. Within an hour, I'd pulled myself together. I put the last few touches on my pixie cut, emphasizing the well-placed highlights, before I tossed a scarf adorned with anchors around my neck to finish off my seaside-inspired look. I grabbed my bag, slid on my sunglasses, and headed out in my vintage capri outfit. I lived on the edge of town, but on a nice summer day like today with a cool ocean breeze, walking to town was a snap. Even with my wedges, the flat terrain and wide sidewalks made the journey pleasant. Town filled in around me. The colorful houses gave way to quaint shops. I passed the antique shop owned by the eccentric Beatrice. A quick glance in the window as I passed showed several new items. She must have hit the motherlode when she went to the antique show last week. I'd have to stop in. I needed a few odds and ends for both the shop and the bungalow. I'd stop in on my next day off, I promised, as I continued past a few boutiques before I came to the coffee coven. I pushed through the door under the sign sporting a coffee cup wearing a witch's hat and took a long whiff of the deliciously scented store. "Hey, Vic," Sandy called with a wave. "Already got your iced mocha frappe ready and waiting." "Thanks, honey. Can I grab a chocolate croissant, too?" She pointed a finger at me and winked. "Of course." "Your color's holding up amazing," I said as she slid the cold coffee toward me. She flicked the pink ponytail and gave me a coy smile. "I used that shampoo you recommended. It's as pink as the day you dyed it." I sipped my drink before I dug in my bag for my wallet. "I told you." Sandy bagged the croissant for me as I swiped my card in the machine. I stuffed my card in my wallet and dumped it into my bag as the machine beeped a confirmation. "Need a receipt?" I waved it away as I tossed the strap onto my shoulder and grabbed the bag. "I'll see you tomorrow. You've got a mani-pedi scheduled, right?" "Yep. Going to change these out for something brighter." She wiggled her light pink nails at me. "We just got some new colors in. Deanna will be able to give you exactly what you want." I waved at her before I pushed into the warm summer seaside air and continued down Main Street toward my shop. An icy breeze whipped past me as I approached. I glanced behind me, wondering where it had come from. I flicked my gaze to the blue skies, my eyebrows pinching. As I scanned the skies, I spotted a few black clouds building on the horizon. I hadn't realized rain was in the forecast. There was no mention of it on my weather app this morning, but the storm clouds gathered just the same. By the time I reached my door, they blotted out the sun. I grabbed the handle and pulled. The door stuck fast. What in the world? I asked myself as I dug in my bag for my keys. Where was Maxine? or anyone else. I glanced at the 2 large front windows. The sunshades were still drawn. "That's odd," I said as I dropped the bag onto the sidewalk and set my coffee next to it. I would have to talk to the girls about closing up properly. I finally found my keys and hefted my purse onto my shoulder again after dumping my croissant inside. I grabbed the slippery cup of iced coffee and stood to unlock the door. A rumble of thunder boomed overhead, and an unsettled feeling twisted my stomach into a knot. Something felt off. But what? I was about to find out, and it wasn't going to be pretty. Chapter 2. A bolt of lightning ripped through the sky and sent me scurrying into the shop. The wind tore the door from my hands, and it banged open before swinging back and slamming shut. I whipped around and winced as the noise assaulted my ears. When I recovered, I realized nothing else sounded in the shop. No chatter, no laughter, not even the sound of the girls preparing their stations for the day. An eerie silence pervaded the salon. I'd never heard it so quiet. At least, not recently. I dug into my purse again as I glanced outside. Was this storm something to worry about? Had all our clients canceled and no one told me? I toggled on my display and scrolled through my notifications. No messages about cancellations, and no weather alerts. It also didn't escape me that I hadn't heard from Maxine yet. The odd feeling I'd had before I opened the door heightened. My skin puckered into gooseflesh as I clicked off my phone's display. What was going on here? I took another glance down the street. The maple trees that shaded the sidewalk swayed in the wind, their branches bent toward the street, the leaves rustling and threatening to be ripped from their perches. I grimaced, hoping none of them decided to uproot themselves and damage a shop or parked car. As the skies continued to darken and large raindrops splattered on the pavement, I twisted to flick on the lights. The shop flooded with a warm glow, illuminating the space. After a final glance at the skies, I spun and took a step into the shop. I stopped dead after only a step, my jaw unhinging. The iced coffee slipped from one hand as my phone fell from the other. The plastic cup smashed against the floor, and the lid popped off while my phone clattered across the tiles of the entryway. Cold, tan liquid spread in a puddle on the floor, hitting my toes and staining my wedges. But that was the least of my problems. My heart pounded as I stared straight ahead. Smack dab in the middle of my shop, in one of the styling chairs, a body sat slumped over. Maybe he's asleep, my mind suggested. Yeah, Vic, he's asleep, I said in a shaky voice to myself. My voice echoed off the walls of the empty shop, and the sleeping body didn't wake up. I grimaced. Heavy sleeper, I said aloud. With a deep breath, I snatched my phone from the floor seconds before the coffee collided with it, then forced myself to inch closer to the guy. I wasn't sure my knees would hold me as I crept across the salon. My legs felt like jelly. I closed in on him. With my shoulders hunched, I crouched as I reached a shaky finger forward and poked him. I snapped my hand back and shook it as though he had cooties. He, on the other hand, never moved. With a long breath out, I tried again, giving him a firmer poke with 2 fingers. This time he moved. The guy slid right out of the chair and sprawled with a thud across my vinyl planking. Now I could no longer delude myself into thinking he was asleep. Not only did he not wake up when he slammed into the floor, but the pair of scissors poking from his bloody chest assured me he was as dead as a doornail. A wavering whimper escaped my lips as I trembled all over. I'd just touched a dead body. With a deep grimace, I dialed the emergency number and pressed the phone to my ear. It took an eternity to ring. I barely heard the dispatcher who answered before I blurted out my problem. "There's a dead guy in my salon!" Okay, calm down, ma'am. We're going to get emergency services to you now. What is your location? I rattled off the address to my salon before she followed up. All right, I have police and paramedics on their way to you. Are you safe right now? No, of course not. There's a dead man on my floor. Is there any sign of the assailant? My heart hammered in my chest as I snapped my gaze from the stiff body to glance around the shop. I don't think so. I took a tentative step toward the back, wondering if someone lurked back there waiting to commit another murder. Okay, I need you to stay on the line, ma'am, until emergency services arrive. Are you certain the victim is deceased? I eyed the pair of scissors in his chest. Yeah, I am. No pulse? He has a pair of scissors sticking out of his chest and his eyes are wide open, staring up at the ceiling. And he's gray and stiff. Okay, I'm passing this information along to the police and EMTs. I chewed my lower lip as I waited for someone to arrive. I didn't care who came first as long as I wasn't alone with a dead body much longer. Seconds later, sirens split the noise of the rain pounding on the roof. Tires screeched on the pavement, and blue and red flashing lights painted the walls of the salon through my tinted sunshades. Frenzied footfalls approached before 2 officers burst through the door of my salon, weapons drawn. Hands up! I threw my hands in the air, still clutching my phone. I'm the one who called. Victoria Fanning. I found the body. I poked a finger toward the man sprawled next to me, as though they wouldn't see it. Ma'am, I need you to step toward us with your hands in the air. I followed their instructions, moving slowly toward them. I hopped over the spilled drink as one officer holstered his weapon and crossed to the body. The other signaled for me to hand the phone to her. We've got it from here, thanks, she said, before ending the call with emergency services and handing my phone back to me. I nodded as I accepted it and wrapped my arms around my midriff. Is this your shop? My head bobbed up and down before I choked out the word. Yeah. Can you describe what happened this morning? She asked as the paramedics flung the door open and hurried inside with a stretcher. They approached the other officer, who rose from his squat. Male Vic, approximately 50, DOA, stab wound to the chest. I suppressed a shudder as I flicked my gaze back to the officer in front of me. Well, I got here about 15 minutes ago. The shop was locked, no one else was here. Is that typical for a Tuesday? No, I answered. Usually someone is here. At least my assistant, Maxine, even if there are no early appointments. She's usually checking the schedule, preparing for the day, or calling with reminders. The officer jotted down a few notes. Can you give me your name with the correct spelling? I gave it to her letter by letter, side-eyeing the action by the dead guy. The paramedics did their routine exam and declared him dead. No kidding. A second later, the door burst open again, and a few people, their windbreakers bearing the bright yellow letters CSI, barreled into the shop, carrying their equipment. They bypassed me and went straight to the scene. Before I knew it, my shop turned into a photo shoot. Not the good kind, either. A tall, slender woman took pictures from a variety of angles before putting the camera aside. She stooped near the body, cocking her head to study it before she swiped at the puffy bangs on her forehead. I shook my head. That style went out a decade ago. Ma'am? The cop speaking with me said. What? I asked, snapping my gaze back to her. Can you tell me what you noticed when you came in? Oh, sure. I didn't notice anything. I was distracted by the storm blowing in outside, and one of the girls who closed forgot to pull up the shades before they left, so it was pretty dark in here. I checked my phone when it started to get dark to see if I had a severe weather alert or if Maxine was texting me to let me know we had cancellations. Maxine is your assistant, the one who's usually here but isn't? Right. I haven't heard from her this morning. She's usually here. I glanced around as though she may appear out of thin air. When she didn't, I shrugged. Anyway, I had no messages and no weather alert, so I turned on the lights and took a step in. That's when I noticed him. And you called emergency services? No, I said with a shake of my head. No, I thought maybe he was asleep or something. I poked him, and he fell on the floor. He fell on the floor? He wasn't on the floor? No, he was sitting in my chair. He slumped onto the floor when I poked him. I see, she said as she jotted down a few notes. And how do you know the victim? I don't, I said, my shoulders jabbing at the dangling hoops hanging from my ears. She flicked her gaze up, studying me for a second. Did she not believe me? I've never seen that guy before in my life. He's not a client? No, not to my knowledge, unless one of my girls cuts him when I'm not here, but I don't know him. And I know most of my clients, even of the other girls. The officer nodded and scrawled a few more lines of text on her notepad. He's not a friend? Boyfriend? I screwed up my face. No. All right, who else has keys to the place? Maxine, Stacy, and JC all have keys, I said, naming the other 3 of my 5 employees who had unfettered access to the shop. Are those all of your employees? No, there's also Rachel and Lauren. I paused, wondering if I should mention the other individual. I decided not to. And those 2 don't have keys. Right, they don't open or close. Someone else is always with them. Do you have contact information for all of them that you could pass along? Yeah. I toggled on my phone's display and passed along the information for all of them. And who closed last night? Let me check. I wasn't here for close last night. I skirted the reception desk and brought the computer to life. The monitor glowed, and I clicked to open the digital appointment book. Today's schedule filled the screen. I clicked to go back to the previous day. My eyebrows furrowed as I stared at a blank screen. With a nervous chuckle, I held up a finger. Sorry, there's something wrong with my system. I clicked back and forth a few times, but the issue didn't resolve. Maybe a reboot of the system would help. As the screen went black, I drummed my manicured fingers against the laminated wood. My eyes fell to the officer's fingers as she waited, poised to jot down the name. Her cuticles could have used some love. Maybe I'd offer her a complimentary mani. She could use it. The machine sprang to life, and I focused my energy on reopening my appointment book. Here we go. The book filled the screen, and I returned to the day before. A blank shell stared back at me. Heat washed over me as I glanced at the empty book. Okay, sorry, normally I can pull up the clients from the day before to see who was last in, but the book's blank. And that's not normal? She asked as she lifted her chin to glance at the screen. No, I can see appointments from 3 months ago, I said, clicking through to prove it. So just yesterday is missing, she said. I nodded as I studied the blank schedule again. Yeah, just yesterday is missing. I know Stacy had clients through the evening. I think JC had a late cut, and Maxine usually has a shampoo and style every Monday evening. All right, we can ask everyone about their clients, but if you do come across that schedule, please let us know. I will, I assured her as I returned to today's schedule. The first appointment was in less than 30 minutes. I glanced at the investigators across the room. They'd never be done by then. Looks like I'd suddenly gotten a day off. My brow furrowed as I noticed a simultaneous appointment for a color, highlight, and cut with Maxine. If Maxine had a heavy first appointment, I was surprised she wasn't here yet. Where was she? All right, the officer said as she flipped her notebook closed. I have everything I need right now. If we have any further questions, we know where to reach you. I nodded, sinking into the chair at the desk. She raised her eyebrows at me. You're free to go. I scoffed at the statement. Like heck I was. Listen, honey, I've got clients I need to call and reschedule. I need access to my book, my phone, my client info. I can't just leave. Ma'am, we're in the middle of an investigation. You can't... I wagged a finger at her. The last person who told me I can't is still paying me alimony. We need to fingerprint. I'm not stopping you. You're contaminating the crime scene. I'm here pretty much every day. My fingerprints are everywhere here. So are dozens of other people." The woman frowned at me, accentuating the lines around her lips, although those were accentuated already by the severe hairstyle she sported. "All right, but stay in your seat until we get this cleaned up." I waved my hands in the air and returned my gaze to the screen. "I'll just be over here rescheduling my clients." The other officer wandered over to us. "You're staying?" "I already told your partner I've got a full book of clients to reschedule." "Can't that wait?" I snapped my gaze to him. "These ladies will be breaking down my door if their hair isn't cut and colored within the next day or so." He crinkled his brow. I narrowed my eyes at him. Something was familiar. "Wait a minute. You should know this. Your wife, Kim, is here every 6 weeks like clockwork for her color and cut." "Yeah, but if she missed..." "She did once, remember? She had to cancel because you were out of town training and Macy got sick." He set his jaw, his lips turning down into a frown. "Right. Never heard the end of that." "Now you know." I grabbed the phone without waiting for a response and jabbed at the keys to call my first client. Within the hour, I'd notified my clients, rebooked the entire day, and called the girls with appointments to give them the day off. During that time, the police bagged the body and moved him out. They continued to dust various things for fingerprints and collect pieces of evidence. More photographs were taken. I sat waiting, staring at my phone. I tried to call Maxine, but gotten no answer. I left her a message, but hadn't heard back. I'd even sent a follow-up text. Still nothing. Where was she? I drummed my red manicured fingernails against the desk as I waited for the CSI unit to wrap up. Finally, they showed signs of finishing. They stowed their equipment and zipped up their bags. The woman with the slicked-back ponytail approached me, her bag banging off her side. She shoved a card toward me. "What's this?" I asked, staring down at it. "Crime scene cleaners. You'll want to give them a call to get this cleaned up." I stared over at the bloodstains now on the floor from where the body had dropped. Yeah, maybe I should let someone else clean it up. I nodded and waved the card at her. "Thanks." The team packed up and left me alone. I gave the cleaners a call and made an appointment for them to come out after lunch. With any luck, I'd have my shop open by tomorrow at the latest. I decided to lock up and head out for lunch before I met the cleaners. Then I'd grab a book and spend my evening off enjoying myself and trying to push the memories of what had happened this morning from my mind. As I stood from my office chair and grabbed my bag, my phone chimed. I dug it from my bag and glanced at the display. My heart skipped a beat, and my stomach dropped as I read the message from Maxine. "Hey, Vic, I think I'm in trouble." Chapter 3. I collapsed into the chair as heat washed over me. With a glance to the bloodstains still on the floor, I swallowed hard as my shaky hands tried to type a message. What happened? I waited for a few minutes for a response, but nothing came. Come on, Maxine, where are you? The phone held no answers for me. I pushed the call icon next to her name. The line trilled, but no one answered. I clicked my tongue as I listened to the spiel about leaving a message before I clicked off the call. No sense in leaving a message when she wasn't answering. I dumped my phone in my bag and crossed to the door. The rain had already let up, and the sun peeked through the clouds. Looked like it would turn out to be a decent day in Crystal Cove after all. Steamy heat washed over me as I pushed through the door. The rain had heated up the day more than I'd expected. I wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead as I hurried across the street toward the Crystal Cafe. I pushed into the cool interior. The din of the lunch crowd met my ears as silverware clanked against plates, and the scent of fried food filled my nostrils. Ava, the waitress, darted past with a tray full of food and grinned at me. "Picking up a to-go, Vic?" "No, I've got some time to kill. I figured I'd eat in." She bobbed her perfect ponytail up and down as she nodded. "Grab a seat wherever you'd like." I scanned the place. A few tables were open near the front, but I spied a quiet table in the back corner. I skirted around the counter and tables, headed for it, and plopped into the shiny red seat. With my bag in my lap, I dug for my phone and checked the display. Still nothing from Maxine. I shook my head at it, tossing it back inside as Ava approached. "What'll you have?" My usual was chicken salad croissant, but given the circumstances today, I felt I needed a change. "I'll have the burger and a chocolate shake." "You got it, Vic," she said with a nod as she tapped her pencil against the pad emphatically. I rested my chin in my palm as I glanced out the window behind me. It overlooked a brick-lined pedestrian mall leading to several of the town's shops. Vendors opened their doors again, dragging sample wares out for shoppers to peruse. So far, the little town of Crystal Cove hadn't been affected by the tragedy. The townsfolk went about their business, completely oblivious to what had happened. The murder would rock the small town once they learned of it. Until then, I took the last few quiet moments I'd have reflecting on what had happened. Shock turned to realization. I'd found a dead body this morning. A shiver shook me as the memories danced across my mind again, unbidden. Thankfully, my food arrived, and I turned my attention to the juicy burger and the mouth-watering milkshake with mile-high whipped cream topped with a cherry. My stomach rumbled. I dove into my meal, savoring the first bite of the burger before I shoved a fry into my mouth and washed it all down with a long sip of the delectable frozen drink. It went a long way to ease my nerves. What was I going to do? Soon everyone would know I'd found a body, and I still had to deal with the cleaners, and then there was Maxine. What kind of trouble was she in? My mind connected the dots. Bits of burger danced across my tongue as I groaned. Maxine and trouble equaled my assistant and closest friend had offed the stiff. My stomach soured despite the excellent food. I ripped a few of the thin napkins from the holder and wiped my hands on them before I tossed them aside in a ball. I dug in my purse and found my phone. A quick check of my notifications showed no new messages from Maxine again. I frowned at it. Nothing like dropping a bombshell and running away. She's in trouble, and she texts me to say as much, then just disappears? I started to fear the worst. Had Maxine done something stupid? I tossed my phone back in my purse and polished off what remained of my meal. I had to get to Maxine's on the double and find out what was going on. With the last of my shake still in my mouth, I waved at Ava. "Need something? Maybe a slice of pie?" she asked as she made her way over. "No, honey, just the check," I said. "Quick if you can. I gotta run." "Sure, Vic. Just give me a second. You can meet me up at the front if you like." "I will, thanks." She scurried off, and I gave my lips one last dab with the napkin before I grabbed my purse and slid out from behind the table. I hurried to the cash register and waited as she typed in my order to get the total. I resisted the urge to drum my nails on the counter, but my impatience probably showed as I shifted my weight from side to side. The television across the way played a foodie show until trumpets blasted, cutting into the show. Uh-oh. Breaking news on this late summer day. Oh, shoot. The newscaster with the helmet hair was about to blab everything. I glanced around the packed diner. I'd be like a lamb led to the slaughter. They'd descend on me like wolves on untended sheep. I wouldn't make it out of the Crystal Cafe alive if Ava didn't hurry up. "I'm Liza Montgomery," Helmet Hair blabbed on, before the man at her side with the perfectly styled salt and pepper hair and carefully selected glasses spoke. "And I'm Richard Cavahill. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this developing story live out of Crystal Cove." The camera switched to the blonde, who must have used enough hairspray to ensure not a hair on her head moved when she gave the slight nod to agree with her fellow newscaster. "That's right, Richard. Channel 6 News has learned that a body has been found." "That'll be $8.75, Vic. Sorry the machine's acting up." I rustled through the bills in my wallet and pulled out a 20. I shoved it at her, and she stared, tapping around on the register. "Keep the change," I called over my shoulder as I scampered out the door. "This is way too much of a tip," Ava shouted after me. I didn't care. I never looked back. The last words that reached my ears as I stepped into the pleasant day was the name of my salon. My knees felt a little wobbly. I was probably ruined. Luckily, I'd made it out of the diner before Helmet Head spilled the beans. I hoped as much as was true for Maxine. I had to get to her place and find out what was going on. If she was responsible for this murder, there had to be a reason. We'd figure it out and restore her name and Affair with Hair's name. I kept my head down as I speed-walked my way through the streets of Crystal Cove. Maxine lived on the other side of town in a cute little one-story ranch. I took the most direct route my scattered mind could make out. What would I do if Maxine had killed the guy? Would I help her? I had to. She was my best friend, and there had to be a reason. Yes, there had to be a reason. Maybe he was an ex-boyfriend who had gotten too handsy with her, or maybe he tried to rob her. There were a dozen reasons to make this self-defense, though why she hadn't called the police was beyond me. Because she'd be railroaded, I mumbled under my breath. I'd seen enough Lifetime movies to know women could go to jail even if they were within their own rights. I started to make up a plan for her to go on the lam. I'd help her out. Her street stretched in front of me. I hid behind a tall bush and peered at her place. No cops, nothing strange. After a glance up and down the street, I hot-footed it toward her porch and raced up the 2 stairs before I banged on the door. No one answered. I pushed the doorbell repeatedly. "Maxine? It's me, Victoria. Let me in." I tried to keep my voice down in case any of the neighbors were home. I leaned back and glanced at the house on the left, then on the right, then across the street. Everything was quiet. I banged again. "Maxine? Come on, honey, open up. Look, whatever happened, we'll fix it. I promise. We'll get through it. Just open up." "Hey, Vic," her shaky voice answered me from behind the door. "Maxine? Maxine, open the door." "Look, Victoria, I messed up big time. I'm really sorry for flaking out on you this morning." "That doesn't matter. It's fine. Not a big deal. I'm just... Look, whatever's going on, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I'm not abandoning you, okay? I've got your back, no matter what." "Seriously? Even if I'm a huge disappointment to you?" "That could never happen." I gave a vehement shake of my head. "Now, just open the door and let's talk about this." "I can handle it," she answered. "I promise. I just need a little time." "Maxine, you can't do this alone, and you don't have to. I'm here for you, whatever it takes." She didn't answer me for a while. I turned my ear toward the door and listened. Was she still there? I half expected to see her raced from between the houses, or her car to burst out of the still-closed garage. Would she try to make a run for it now that I'd caught her? "Maxine?" The lock clicked as it disengaged. "Come in," she shouted. I twisted the knob and pushed the door open. I found an empty foyer. Was she making a run for it now? Was the open door a distraction? "Maxine?" I called. "Just give me a minute." Her voice came from the back of the house. "Sure, honey, take your time." I imagined after killing someone, she needed a minute to compose herself. She was likely about to admit to murder. I'd be shaken. I bet she was too. I glanced into her living room. It looked nice, with a comfy couch in front of a fake fireplace. A cozy chair with a lamp and a stack of books sat in the corner near a window. I stepped toward it and glanced out. You could just see the sea. "If you want some coffee, Vic, just use the K-cup in the kitchen." I'm good. I just had lunch." "Well, make me a cup, would you? I'm in desperate need of it." "Sure. Hey, do you have any bread?" "Yeah, in the bread box. Why?" "I'll make you some toast. I bet you haven't eaten a thing." "I haven't," she called. "But you don't have to do that." "It's no trouble." I started the K-cup and found the bread. With it toasting, I shoved a few things around in her refrigerator in search of butter. With her coffee brewed, I started the machine again. On second thought, I'd need the caffeine boost. The machine hummed away as I buttered the toast. Footsteps sounded in the hallway outside. My stomach turned over. Here it came. I wondered if I'd be able to read it on her face the moment she walked in. Would she break down? Would I? It was going to be a tough couple of hours, no matter which way it went. I braced myself for it. I really messed up, Vic. Bad, she said again. I blew out a breath. I knew it. The evidence was still congealed on my shop's floor. I didn't know how we'd fix this, but we would. At least, I hoped so. Chapter 4. Don't freak out. Promise? Honey, I'm not going to... I spun to face her, my jaw dropping. I gulped. Yep, I could read it on her face all right. I knew exactly how badly she'd messed up, and it was going to take a while to fix. Maxine? What happened? Maxine slid her eyes closed as she shook her head. I let one of the student helpers try to give me a few pops of color. They messed up bad. I wandered over with an open-mouthed grimace and grabbed one green lock of hair. I know, I never should have let them try it, but it was Cindy, and I thought she was so smart and had her act together. Well, she didn't have her dyes together. She went way too far into the cool tones on your hair, and now you're green. Yep, this was going to take a while to fix, but I could do it. Good thing you know the best stylist in town. I'm so embarrassed. I didn't want you to see it. After all of your work on my hair, I ruined it. Are we going to have to cut it off? I raked my hands through her hair as ideas raced through my mind. No, I think we can fix it, but I'm going to need supplies. Like, a lot of them. Maxine clicked her tongue. Yeah, I know. I'll just put this up under a baseball cap and you can fix it whenever you have an opening in your book. I have an opening right now, I answered after a sip of my coffee. She wrapped her fingers around her mug before she took a bite of her toast. I thought you were booked through the morning. I was, until the you-know-what hit the fan. Huh? Maxine asked with a crinkled nose. I stared at her. Haven't you watched the news? No, I've literally been crying all morning over this hair. Stupid, right? I pulled one of her kitchen chairs out and sank into it. I've got worse news than your swimmer's hair. Vic, what happened? I licked my lips. How was I going to explain this to her? Should I just say it straight out? That might be too much of a shock. Well, I got kind of a surprise when I opened the shop this morning. We're closed for the day because of it. Tell me there's a water break. Didn't that plumber just upgrade the lines in the building? Uh-huh, I said as the vision of the dead guy rattled around in my head again. I stared down at the coffee in my mug. She sank into the chair across from me. Vic, what is it? I found a body in the shop this morning. Maxine choked on her coffee, sputtering the dark liquid across her light oak table. Like a dead one? As a doornail, sitting in the middle chair. Did you call the cops? I looked at her with wide eyes. Yeah, they're crawling all over the place. I had to cancel everyone's appointments for the day. Long story short, I'm free to fix your hair, but we'll need supplies. Are we allowed to swing by the shop? It's still my shop. But if it's all the same to you, I'd rather go in the back entrance. I barely made it out of the cafe before it was all over the news. I'll be hounded. No kidding. Well, since this is my fault, I'm going with you. I'll toss a cap on and we'll head out. Honey, we're going to need way more than a ball cap. 20 minutes later, we were heading out of Maxine's house in full incognito mode. I had a cheetah-patterned trench coat, a black fedora, and sunglasses as big as my face. Maxine looked similar, except she had a baseball cap, a long duster, and equally big sunglasses. We hurried through the streets to the alley behind the Salon and ducked down it. With my keys at the ready, I kept my head low until I reached the back door of my place. I shoved the keys inside the lock and yanked it open. We both ducked inside and let the door bang shut behind us. The salon was eerily quiet. All the cops were gone now, but the air hung heavy. "Those cleaners need to get here quick. It smells like death in here," I said as I rummaged through my toners in search of what I'd need. "I don't smell anything." "Well, I do." I shivered all over as I recalled the body that had been sitting in that chair just a few hours ago. Maxine crept to the opening into the salon and peeked in. She gasped, and I dropped the boxes and joined her. "There's still blood on the floor, I think. Don't go in." Maxine lifted a shaky hand and pointed at the window. I grimaced as I stared at the crowd gathered out front. A few of them even cupped their hands to peer in the window. Typical. This is why I wanted to come in the back. "Sorry, Vic." Maxine shrugged before she shoved her hands in her pocket. "It's fine. Everyone's going to be here tomorrow when they know we're back poking around. I've got what I need. Let's get out of here." I grabbed a tube of color out of its box, developer, gloves, a mixing bowl, and the other necessities, and shoved it all into a shopping bag. As I walked to the door, I tossed the box into the trash, doing a double take as it slapped against something inside. I stared down into the can, furrowing my brow. A few hairstyling manuals, looking distinctly like they were from a zillion years ago, when hair resembled helmets and hairspray was sold in gallon containers to keep it that way, were inside. I wrinkled my nose, frowning at them. Who had put these in my trash? Given that I'd just found a dead body in my shop, I figured it couldn't be a coincidence. Maybe it was some kind of clue or something. Should I call the cops? No, they'd just ignore me, tell me it had nothing to do with anything. But the murder had happened in my shop, and I didn't want to get a bad reputation. I decided in that instant that I needed to clear my salon's name. Or fix its reputation or whatever. I stared at the stack of books in the trash, my fingers hesitating just above them. Something about them felt off. Why would anyone toss these out? Especially in my salon of all places. A nagging thought told me it couldn't be a coincidence, not after what had happened this morning. With a quick glance over my shoulder to make sure Maxine wasn't watching too closely, I scooped up the manuals and stuffed them into my shopping bag. Maybe they were just junk, but a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered that they were something more. "Vic? What are you doing?" Nothing," I lied. "Just grabbing everything I need." "Well, hurry up before someone spots us," she hissed, waving a hand impatiently at me. Okay, I said with a huff. "I'm coming." The shopping bag banged off my hip as I hurried out the door, tugged it shut, and locked it before I glanced down the alley over the rim of my chunky sunglasses. Clear. "Let's go," I whispered, grabbing hold of Maxine and dragging her down the alley. We hustled our way back to her place, where I set up shop, and within minutes of walking into the door, I was getting her greenish hair situation under control. "Okay, don't ever let Cindy touch your hair again," I said with a sigh as I painted over the green-tinged highlight. I mean, what color was she even going for here? Like a really beigey, ashy blonde. Honey, you can't achieve that without this happening. She should have known better. Did she even look at your base? Maxine heaved a sigh, shaking her head. I know. I thought she knew what she was doing. I nearly killed her last night. Hey, speaking of killing someone, I can't believe you found a body in the shop. Me either, I said, pulling the clip from her hair and sectioning off another piece to work with. Who was it? Maxine asked. No idea. I didn't recognize him. Maxine screwed up her face. That's so weird. Why would some random person you didn't recognize be in the shop? You tell me. I shrugged as I dipped my brush into the color mixed in the bowl and painted it onto her hair. Who closed last night? Stacy or JC. I'm not sure. After Cindy did my hair, I was so mortified I ran out. I'm not sure who actually closed. I heaved a sigh, my eyebrows raising as I worked on fixing the next section of hair. Well, we need to find out. Maybe it's someone they know. Whoever it was, they deleted out my entire schedule book from yesterday before they left. What? Maxine cried. Seriously? It's easy enough to find out who left last. I let the rest of her hair down from the clip and painted it with my magic mix before I glanced at the clock. Okay, you're set. Just have to wait for it to process now. I carried my bowl to the sink and washed it out, setting it on a paper towel to dry as Maxine crossed to a drawer filled with menus. Dinner, Vic? It's the least I can do. Yes, please. I'm starving, and I'm not planning on cooking. Me either, she answered, shuffling through the menus. Mexican, Italian, what are you in the mood for? Margaritas, I shot back as I dried my hands. Mexican it is. Maxine tapped around on her phone, placing an order for tacos and our much-needed alcoholic beverages before we moved to the living room to wait out the dye. Maxine flipped on the television. Maybe there'll be something on the news. I groaned. Oh, I'm sure there will be. Probably will be some crazy shots of the shop to ruin our reputation. I wonder how many cancellations we'll get. Aw, come on. We've got a loyal client base for a reason. They're not going to bail on you. The music blared from the television speakers as the graphics for the news rolled across the screen. Two serious-looking newscasters stared at the camera. After greeting viewers, the male newscaster twisted to face a new camera as he spoke, his features pinched. Breaking news tonight as more information unfolds in the startling case of murder in Crystal Cove. Here it comes, I said. Police have identified the victim as 34-year-old Donald Harris. Mr. Harris is apparently not from Crystal Cove. Investigators say they are still looking into why Mr. Harris was not only in town, but in a hair salon. That's right, Chuck, the female broadcaster followed up. The victim was found by Victoria Fanning, the shop's owner, this morning when she arrived for her morning clients. Action News 5 reached out to Miss Fanning for a comment, but she did not return our calls. The news turned to other stories, but I barely registered them. I sat there, fuming, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. They made it sound so clinical. A man had died, a man I had found in my salon. It wasn't just some headline to me. It was my life, my reputation on the line. And yet, to them, it was just another story, another breaking news segment to fill airtime. I felt a surge of determination rise within me. If they thought they could brush this off, they had another thing coming. I wasn't going to let my name or my business be dragged through the mud because of this. No, I didn't because I didn't want to be badgered by reporters about finding a body in my shop. Maxine offered me a consoling glance. Aw, Vic, it'll die down. Hopefully before we lose all our clients. No way they'll leave us. Everyone knows you're the best around. I wasn't quite so sure. Scandal in Crystal Cove was a big deal, and people around here didn't like it. My name would be ruined. It would be worse than if I gave someone a bad perm. I needed a distraction before the alcohol arrived to numb my anxiety. I reached for my purse to grab my phone when I knocked over the shopping bag I'd brought with the tools to fix Maxine's hair. The vintage manuals spilled out, and I wrinkled my nose at them again. Hey, Maxine, do you know who these belong to? She glanced down at the books I pointed to and shook her head. No, where'd you find those? They're ancient. In the trash at the shop. I don't know who dumped them there. Maxine lifted a shoulder. Maybe one of the other girls. Maybe they collected them or something. The explanation didn't sit right with me. I grabbed one of them and settled back into the cushions behind me, flipping over the book. No name in it. I flipped open the inside and checked the cover, but it didn't give me any clues as to the owner. I turned to the first page, marveling at the ridiculous coiffes being taught, when I noticed something odd. As I thumbed through the pages, I spotted a few of the letters underlined with a black marker. I frowned, tracing the line with my fingertips. The letters didn't spell anything out, just random marks, or so it seemed. But why go to the trouble of underlining them if they meant nothing? My heart gave a little jolt. Was this some kind of code? I flipped to another page, finding more underlined letters. The pattern was too deliberate to be accidental. I didn't know what it meant yet, but my gut told me this was important. I thumbed through the rest of the manual, finding more letters with the strange underline. "Pretty hideous, huh?" Maxine joked as the doorbell rang. "Yeah," I murmured as I stared at the pages, wondering if I had just found my first clue. Chapter 5. I narrowed my eyes at the manuals while Maxine grabbed the food from her porch. Apparently, she'd told the guy to leave the food on the doorstep and get the heck out of here. I didn't blame her. Her hair still left something to be desired, but it should all be sorted soon, especially after I used my magic toner to mesh everything together. I stared down at those underlined letters as the scent of tacos wafted to my nostrils. Come on, Vic. We can get at least one margarita and taco down before I need rinsed and toned. I gave one last glance at the book before I tossed it back into the shopping bag and left it behind in favor of the food. So, should we text the other girls and see who offed this stranger? Maxine asked. After a long sip of my margarita, I sucked in a sharp breath. Do you think either of them will admit to it? Maxine shrugged. I don't know, but it can't hurt to ask. I mean, the police will surely want to question them. Maybe all of us. Thank goodness I fixed your hair, and you won't have to sit under those harsh lights with that greenish cast. It would be so much worse at the station. Maxine bobbed her head as she polished off her first taco. Yeah, totally. I tossed the last bite of my taco in my mouth and dusted my hands. Speaking of, we should rinse, and I'll put the toner on, then you can give it a dry and see how we're looking. Maxine took another sip of her margarita before she hurried to the sink and dunked her head inside. I tested the water before I washed the dye from her hair and plastered the toner all over her hair to cool it and blend it all together. Oh, this is going to be so much better, I said. Maxine danced from foot to foot as she waded through the time it took for the toner to process. After another rinse, she wrapped her hair up in a towel and darted out of the kitchen to dry her hair. I collapsed into the kitchen chair, sucking up more of the margarita with my straw as I scrolled through my social media feed. Everyone was chattering about the murder. And my competitors were yucking it up about how they'd take on any new clients if no one wanted to go to the murder salon. My features twisted, my fingers tightening on my phone. I knew they would poach my clients. I wondered if my phone at the salon was already blowing up with cancellations. With a heavy sigh, I switched over to my text app and sent a group message to all of the girls who worked for me. If any one of you knows anything, you'd better fess up now. I have a salon to run, and I am determined to keep it affair with hair, not affair with murder. I attached a screenshot of the ongoing conversation on the community social media page and sent the message on its way. Oh, Vic, Maxine said as she hurried back into the kitchen, her bob now shiny, perfectly tinted, and brightening her skin. This text message is the bomb! Well, I gotta do something. Those girls over at the Curl Up and Die are trying to capitalize on this story. And I'm not about to lose my salon because someone decided to kill someone else. I mean, who does that? My stomach twisted as I scrolled through my social media feed. Evie, at Curl Up and Die, was already salivating at the chance to steal any clients who might jump ship. If too many of them bailed on Affair with Hair, my shop could sink faster than a bad bleach job. I couldn't let that happen. Not me. Maxine sank into the seat across from me and grabbed her now melting margarita. You didn't, right? What? She asked, her voice incredulous. Are you serious? You don't actually think I did this, do you? I shrugged. No, but for a second I did, when I didn't hear from you and I couldn't get a hold of you, and then you said you messed up big time. Well... Victoria, Maxine said, her eyes wide and her jaw hanging open. How could you think that of me? Well, honey, It was all a shock to me. I was reeling. Maxine offered me a playful glare. Well, I hope you know better now. Well, yeah. Now I can see why you were acting so weird, but I didn't know you'd messed up your hair that bad. I thought you'd killed that guy. I would never kill that guy. I don't even know that guy. I scoffed. Well, yeah, I know that now. And if I did, I would have called you right away to help me. My jaw dropped open. You would have made me an accessory to the crime? Heck yes, she answered, her lips puckered around her straw. I would have called you first. Vic, you know that I wouldn't have killed him without cause, like he was attacking me or something. It would have been self-defense. Of course, same here. If I ever call you because I killed someone, it was because I had to, but I don't know about these other girls. I shook my head, wondering if one of my girls had committed a crime and if it was for a good reason or not. My phone finally chirped, and I snatched it from the table, reading my message before I rolled my eyes. According to JC, you closed last night, Maxine. Maxine arched her eyebrow at me. What? I did not. Someone's trying to frame you, honey. Well, she's not going to do it, Maxine said, her features twisting as she snatched her phone and hammered on it. Her message popped up a moment later. I certainly did not, JC, and you know that. I left after Cindy ruined my hair. You and Stacy were left. One of you girls closed. Ouch, I said. You socked it to them. Well, they're liars. She slapped her hand on the table, rattling our margarita glasses. Easy, Maxine. Cindy can vouch for you if you ran out of the shop. If she'll admit it. Maxine shook her head, her eyes rolling toward the ceiling. Cindy is probably in on the frame. Her eyes went wide, and she leaned across the table. Do you think the girls are all in on this together? Like a mass murder? I asked. Maxine nodded before she started to shake her head. No, wait. Mass murder is when a bunch of people get killed, not when a bunch of people kill one person. Oh, right. That's not what I meant. I meant the girls killed him. How was he killed? Did you notice? I grimaced. Pair of scissors right to the chest. Whose? She hissed. I don't know, I answered, kicking myself for not checking people's stations for scissors. I should have looked. We should go back, she answered. You're feeling those margaritas. I sucked up the last of my drink. And so am I. Let's go. Yeah, we'll get ice cream on the way back, too. I need it after the day I've had, Maxine said with a sigh. Yes, please. Although we may want to go incognito again because people are going to swarm us, I said as I rose from the table. Let 'em, she said, lifting her chin. My hair is proof of how good you are. People would be crazy to cancel with you. I'll check my messages while we're there. Then we'll see if we even need to come in tomorrow. The wooden legs of the chair scraped against her flooring as I pushed back and stood. I knew Maxine wanted to show her new hair off, but I wasn't just worried about the cancellations, as I was about the swarm of people we may have to fend off. People around here liked to get a story straight from the source. Plus, I wasn't sure how the ice cream was going to sit on top of the margaritas I'd downed. But all of the problems didn't seem that important. Probably because we'd ordered the darned drinks. So I grabbed my purse, tossed on my trench coat, hat, and giant sunglasses, and stepped out the door with Maxine in an equally stealthy getup. We set off down the sidewalk when Maxine suggested we hit the ice cream shop first, then swing by the shop. That way the reporters will probably be gone. Good idea, I said. We snaked through the streets of Crystal Cove to the Seaside Scoops ice cream shop. Despite the storm earlier, the place was hopping. It was my worst nightmare. Someone was going to recognize us. I just knew it. I shifted my weight from foot to foot as I waited in line for my hot fudge sundae. Vic, Maxine whispered next to me, drawing her sunglasses down her nose as she eyed the others. Everyone's talking about the murder. Yeah, I hear that. Maybe we should take the ice cream back to the shop and eat it there. Maxine whipped around to face me, her eyes wide. Where you found the body? I cringed as she said it a little too loudly. Found the body? someone shouted from behind us in the line before they gasped. It's Victoria! Uh-oh, I said as I tried to hot-foot it from the line to the sidewalk, but I didn't make it. She's trying to run, someone shouted. Get her, another person yelled. A crowd swarmed me and Maxine as we tried to make a quick getaway, and we found ourselves trapped. Questions came at me so fast I couldn't register them. Before I knew it, someone pushed me back until I plopped onto one of the picnic table benches. A hot fudge sundae was slammed onto the table next to me, and a red plastic spoon shoved in my face. We plied you with the ice cream. Now talk, Victoria. I winced as I grabbed the sweet treat. At least let me have a bite first. I dug into the ice cream, my eyes scanning for any way out, but I couldn't see one. I was trapped, and I was going to have to share my tail to get out of this. With a sideways glance, I caught sight of Maxine in an equally compromising position. Sorry, she mouthed before she took a bite of her M&M Hurricane. Come on, Victoria, someone shouted. You found a body! Give us the deets! I lifted my shoulders in a shrug, the sweet taste of the fudge still lingering on my tongue. There's not much to tell. I went into the shop and boom, there he was. Questions were shouted at me, but I couldn't make them out with everyone talking all at once. I held my hands up, a spoon in one, the ice cream in the other. Now, just a minute, people. I can't hear anything when you're all talking at once. One at a time. What was the murder weapon? Someone asked. Pair of scissors right to the ticker. I stabbed my chest with the end of my spoon. How'd he get in the shop? No idea, I said with a shake of my head. Never saw him before in my life. Did one of your girls do it? That one riled me up. I may have thought JC or Stacy had something to do with this, but I wasn't about to let someone else accuse them. My girls were good, decent people, and if it had been one of them, they must have had a reason. No, it happened after the shop was closed, someone answered. I clamped my lips shut as the new details emerged. How do you know? A woman asked. Because of the autopsy, a new voice said. I'm dating a cop, and he said the time of death was like 11 at night, way after the shop was closed. Then how'd he get in there? Before I could answer, someone else shouted a response. I saw a guy hanging around the shop last night. Thought it was weird, him just standing there after dark. My ears perked up. I didn't let on, but I made a mental note to ask about it later. It could be nothing, but in this town, every little detail mattered. It was a valid question, I thought. How did this character get into my locked shop? And who else had been in there? All eyes turned to me. I polished off the last of my sundae and stood. I don't know anything else. I wish I could help you, but I can't. I grabbed Maxine by the arm and tugged her up, fighting my way through the throng of people to escape. They let us go without too much of a fight. They'd already dragged all the information out of us that they wanted, and they had a new victim to prey on. The girl dating the cop was a bigger source of information than I was. Did you hear the time of death? Maxine whispered as we hurried away. Yeah, I said. Way after the shop was closed. So either someone stayed late, or someone didn't lock up properly. Were there signs of a break-in? No, I said with a shake of my head as we threaded through the streets to the shop to check for the offending scissors. A throng of reporters still stood outside the shop's front door. I didn't want to get involved in an interview, so we ducked down a back alley, emerging on the opposite side of the shops. I passed the bookstore that flanked me and approached my back door when I froze. My heart pounded as I stared at the door. It was wide open, creaking slightly in the salty sea breeze. My pulse quickened as my mind raced. I was sure I'd locked it when we left. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as we inched closer. I stared at it, my stomach clenching. Maxine? I locked the door when we left, right? You saw me, right? Yeah? Why? She glanced at it, gasping. Vic, the door's wide open! I know, I said, my voice turning breathy. Someone broke into the shop. Chapter 6. With every muscle in my body taut, I crept closer to the open door. My hand trembled as I pushed it open a little further. It creaked on its hinges, the sound echoing ominously in the darkened shop. "Hello?" I called. No one answered, but something rattled around inside. My breath caught in my throat as my shoulders rose toward my ears. "Maxine, did you hear that?" I whispered.
"Yeah, Vic, I did. Somebody's in there. Let's get out of here."
"No," I said stubbornly, sneaking inside and grabbing the first thing I saw from my counter. An old, fat-barreled curling iron that had lost its luster. "I'm not going to let this go on."
"Victoria!"
Maxine hissed as I crept further into the shop. "Listen, whoever you are, I've got a curling iron and I'm not afraid to use it." I raised the thing overhead. I could knock someone out with this. It was old and heavy, and it could definitely do some damage. "And it's an antique, so it's got some oomph." I inched further into the shop as the sound of a pen dropping to the floor met my ears. I snapped my gaze to it as it rolled across the floor from my desk. I wondered if someone sat there, trying to eliminate any more evidence from the system. They'd already erased my client book from yesterday. Was there something else there that could point to who had done this? "Whatever you're doing, I've already called the cops. They're on their way and they're going to arrest you." My heart pounded in my chest as I took another cautious step inside, the curling iron heavy in my hand. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, every sound amplified in the stillness. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow darting across the floor. I braced myself, raising the curling iron higher. A second later, the offending party stepped into my line of vision. I held my breath for a moment before I pressed my lips together, my arm falling to my side. "Maxine!" I called.
"Yeah? Who is it, Vic?"
Maxine crept closer. "A danged cat," I said as I stared at the gray and white feline in front of me. "Huh?" Maxine closed the gap between us, tilting her head at the kitty. "Oh. Well, wait, he couldn't have opened the door." "No, someone else did that, but they're long gone."
"Who would do this?"
I tossed the old curling iron onto one of the seats before I collapsed into another, spinning the chair to face the unlit mirror. Maybe whoever killed that guy.
"Where was he?"
Maxine asked. I poked a finger at the middle chair. "Right there." The blood had been cleaned, but I couldn't get the image out of my mind. Only a few hours ago, I'd walked in on a dead man in my chair with a pair of scissors in his chest. Maxine checked my drawer. "Your scissors are still here?" I pressed a hand to my chest. "Thank goodness. Those are the expensive kind. I did not want to replace them." She wandered to her own station and lifted the jar of blue liquid. "Mine are still here, too." I checked at the station in front of me. "Cindy's are here." I rose and checked the last chair before Maxine, and I twisted to face each other. "JC's scissors are missing," we both said at the same time. With my heart thudding hard against my ribs, I poked a finger at her. "And JC lied about who closed last night." Maxine dug her phone out of her purse. "What are you doing?" "Calling Stacy to confirm this. She's been awfully quiet." I hurried across the salon and pressed my ear closer to her phone. Stacy picked up on the third ring. "Maxine, hey!" So Stacy was avoiding me, but she'd talk to Maxine. I'd remember that when it came to booking perms. "Hey, Stacy, I assume you heard about what happened at the salon, huh?" "Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Victoria isn't happy. Did you see that scathing message she sent out?" "I did, and JC's response. You know I didn't close last night." I know, Stacy said with a sigh. I don't want to be in the middle of this." I shifted my weight, frustration curling my fingers into fists. "Stacy, we have to do something. Victoria could lose the business over this." "What? Why?
She didn't do it.
My eyebrows rose to my hairline, and I shot a glance at Maxine. And, how do you know that? Maxine asked.
Well, I'm just assuming.
Maxine narrowed her eyes. Stacy, do you know something?
She answered. I don't know anything.
Stacy, Maxine said, her voice a warning.
Stacy didn't answer for a second, and I was about to tell her to let it go, when she suddenly burst out with more information. JC closed, but she didn't kill the guy either.
How do you know?
Because we went out last night, went to a bar, drank a little too much, went home and slept it off.
Are you sure she didn't go kill someone first? Maxine asked. I patted her on the shoulder for a job well done, and she nodded at me.
I'm sure. At least, pretty sure. I don't think she could have killed anyone in the state she was in.
So, is that why she's trying to blame me for closing?
No,
Stacy answered.
No, it's... Look, Maxine, you have to promise me that you won't say anything to Victoria.
Maxine shot me a glance. Yeah, I won't say anything.
Okay, JC... She forgot to lock up last night. When she left, she didn't lock the back door. She forgot. She doesn't want to say anything because she totally needs this job, and I am the one who convinced her not to go back and lock it. What could happen? I said. I feel like a real heel now.
So she didn't go back to the shop? Maxine asked.
No.
You're sure?
Positive. As Stacy's words sank in, I felt a knot of guilt twist in my stomach. Had I really doubted my own girls? I prided myself on knowing them, on running a tight-knit shop where everyone could be trusted. But now, after what had happened, I couldn't help but wonder, was I being naive? I pressed my lips together as I cleared JC's name in my mind. My girls hadn't done anything more than just be a little irresponsible, and I wasn't even going to penalize them for that. I was just glad none of my staff had murdered anyone. But that left one burning question. Who had? We weren't going to figure it out tonight, so after we solved the mystery of why my girls had been so quiet, Maxine and I separated, with her heading back to her house and me heading back to mine. A quick check of my messages before I left showed I actually had a full book tomorrow with no cancellations. All of the calls had been from people who wanted to book with us, now that the Salon lived in infamy. Looked like the next few weeks would be good business for a fair with hair. I settled in for the night under my covers, though I couldn't fall asleep. I tossed and turned, visions of that body floating through my mind every time I closed my eyes. And, on top of that, I couldn't stop wondering who in the world could have slipped into my shop and done the guy in. What was he doing there to begin with? I finally managed a few fitful hours of sleep, filled with nightmares of bodies piling up at a fair with hair, before the sun finally rose over the ocean. My alarm screamed at me. With a groan, I dragged myself from my bed, my mind initially turning to my client list today. I had a dreaded perm, along with 2 tricky colors. I needed all the help I could get. It wasn't until I'd taken the first sip of my morning coffee that I recalled how my day had started yesterday. I'd found a body. I hoped today would be much better, although the perm was already souring it. With myself pulled together, I fluffed my hair a little before I grabbed my purse. It knocked over the shopping bag next to it, spilling the vintage hairstyling guides from it. I recalled the strange underlining in them. I'd have to take a minute to look at that later. For now, I had to get to the shop. I shoved them back into the bag, tossed my purse straps over my arm, and headed out the front door. Most of my walk to town was quiet. I savored the solitude because I knew the moment my day started, I was going to be pestered non-stop about the murder. Resigned to it, I pushed into the coffee coven. I swore the room hushed as I entered, but I was determined to treat this day like any other. I sauntered to the counter and waved at Sandy.
She offered me a tight-lipped grin as she grabbed my usual iced coffee and slid it toward me. Hey, Victoria. How are things? Just fine, honey. How about you? Same old, she answered, her eyes darting around nervously. You're the talk of the town, though. I shifted my weight as I slid my card through the machine. Yeah, I know. I really don't know anything, though. Well, that makes one of you, she said, her eyes lingering on another patron. I twisted to find Agatha Fletcher, the owner of the bookstore next to my shop, in Sandy's sights. Well, that's not surprising, I murmured. Agatha always has some gossip to share. Oh, and she's sharing it to anyone she can, Sandy said. You're all set. Have a good one, Victoria. I grabbed my cold coffee and slid my sunglasses on. As I approached the door, I couldn't help but overhear part of Agatha's conversation. Well, you know, he wasn't really a stranger in town at all. My brow furrowed. I had never seen him before, and the police said he wasn't from around here. What did she mean? Apparently, he was here because he was having quite the steamy little affair with someone who would kill to keep it quiet. Who? Her companion asked. Sources say none other than Evie Marshall, owner of the Curl Up and Die. My ears perked up at Agatha's words, my heart skipping a beat. Evie Marshall? Having an affair? And with the dead guy found in my shop? The pieces of the puzzle started to click together in my mind. I couldn't wait to get to the shop and drop the juicy gossip on Maxine to get her thoughts. I pushed through the door into the bright sunshine and hurried up the street. If Evie Marshall was having an affair with the victim, she could have killed him if he threatened to tell her husband. Why were they meeting at my shop, though? I tightened my grip around my coffee cup. She'd probably done it to try to ruin me. It would solve her problem and sink my shop. As I approached my shop, I readied my keys, unlocked the door, and pushed inside. I stepped inside, expecting a normal day after yesterday's chaos. But the moment my eyes landed on the mirror, my blood ran cold. The message, scrawled in dripping red, screamed at me from the glass. My breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled as I read the words again. Stop digging before you end up dead, too. My jaw dropped open, and the iced coffee slipped from my hand, splashing all over my shoes and making a puddle on the floor as the lid popped off from the force. I may not have found a dead body today, but this threat may have been just as bad, if not worse. Chapter 7. I fanned myself as I stared at my ruined mirror. The police took a few photographs of it as one of the officers questioned me. I wasn't certain if the heat rising in me was from what happened or my frustration with the police's ridiculous questions. Look, for the 100th time, I unlocked the door, walked in, and saw that. I called you right away. The officer stared at me. So the door was locked? Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty certain the lock clicked when I turned the key. But someone's been busting in through my back door, so that's probably how they got in. I thumbed toward the rear of the shop. The officer's eyes slid toward it before he glanced back at me. Okay, so do you have any enemies? I stared at him, my lips parted as I tried to determine if that was a serious question. I just found a dead body in my shop. Someone who let themselves in here definitely had it out for someone. Don't you think they could be the ones doing this? He wrinkled his nose. You think it's related to the murder? That's a pretty big leap, isn't it? Seriously? I scoffed at the ridiculous statement, but the officer didn't share my enthusiasm. Fine. Yeah, I have a few people who would love to mess with me, competitors and the like. Names? I clicked a tongue. Look, I don't want to name names. This is ridiculous. I only reported it in case it was related to the murder. Someone died here, and now I'm getting death threats. I don't take that lightly. With all due respect, this could have been kids who are having some fun, trying to scare people after the murder. My patience was wearing thin. Look, I don't know if you're just humoring me, but someone literally died in my shop, and now I'm getting threats. This is serious. The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Like I said, ma'am, it could just be kids, but if anything else happens, you know where to find us. My eyebrows rose toward my hairline. Are you serious? You think that was written by some kids looking to capitalize on the murder? Could be. The officer flipped his notebook closed and shoved it into his pocket. 9 times out of 10, this is nothing. It should die down as the news of the murder ebbs. If you need anything else, though, give us a holler. Right. I'll make sure I have you on speed dial. I wanted to scream. Instead, I watched him saunter out, feeling more alone in this than ever. I heaved a sigh, frowning at the red letters on the mirror before I stared at the puddle on the floor. Not only did I have no iced coffee to get me through my morning, but I have 2 messes to clean up, and I had a pair of ladies coming in for highlights first thing. With a groan, I took care of the most important order of business first. I fired off a text to Maxine. My iced coffee is all over the floor. Pick me up a fresh one? She answered before I could set my phone down. Sure thing. I'll be right in. What happened? I texted a quick, "Don't ask," before I set the phone down and started to clean up the spilled coffee. After I made sure the floor wasn't sticky, I turned my attention to the mirror. I stared at the crimson letters, my heart pounding in my chest. The message felt personal, like a dagger aimed straight at me. My hand trembled as I reached for the paper towels. Should I really erase it? But the thought of leaving those words there, taunting me, was unbearable. Before I could wipe away the first letter, Maxine bounced through the door, holding 2 coffees. What happened? I thumbed at the mirror. Look. She set the coffees down, tugging her big sunglasses down, her jaw unhinging. Vic! Wait, don't clean it! Why not? I sprayed it with my cleaner and grabbed a wad of paper towels. You have to report that. I did. Cops said it was probably kids trying to be funny. What? Maxine set her hand on her hips. Are you kidding me? Nope. I rubbed away the red letters before I stared down at the rag. This came off easier than I expected. Was it blood? Maxine's voice was just above a whisper. I shook my head, rubbing my finger over the red smudges on the paper towel before I pressed my thumb into it. I raised my hand to my nose, sniffing. This is lipstick. Maybe it was kids. Let me see. Maxine raced over to me and stared at it. No way. That's Rev It Up Red. That's a Luxe brand. Like $30 a tube. No kid spent $30 on lipstick to write on your mirror, Vic. I tossed the paper towels in the bin and set a hand on my hip. Then who did this? Maxine arched an eyebrow. Do you know who wears Rev It Up Red almost constantly? Who always keeps it in her makeup bag? Who almost never wears anything else? I stretched my arms out to the side. Are you going to tell me or keep teasing it? She crossed her arms, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. Evie Marshall. My features betrayed my shock. No. Yes, she said with a nod. You're not going to believe this, I started, when my clients waltzed in. Hi, girls, how are you? I assessed the first client's needs and hurried back to mix up her color. Maxine cornered me in the mixology department. What were you going to say before they walked in? I squeezed a tube of color into the bowl. Well, as I was leaving the coffee coven, Agatha... Bookstore Agatha? Maxine whispered. Yeah, from next door. She told someone that the dead guy wasn't a stranger in these parts. Supposedly, he was having an affair with someone here. No way! Who? Evie Marshall, I hissed. So, when you told me about that lipstick... Maxine gasped, grabbing my arm and squeezing. Oh my goodness! Evie did it! Evie committed murder! Shh!
I said, glancing out into the shop to make sure no one had heard her exclamation. You can't yell stuff like that. Sorry, but she had to have done it. I mean, she's having an affair with the guy, and that's definitely her shade of lipstick. Now she kills him here to ruin affair with hair, then starts threatening you to keep the story going and shift all the focus off of her. I wouldn't be surprised, I said, poking my wet whisk at her. But we have no proof. Hundreds of women probably have that lipstick. And the cops aren't going to consider them all, right? Unless there is some kind of proof that the cops have. Like maybe the CSI people found a strand of her hair or a button or something. Do you think? Maxine asked. I shrugged. I don't know, but there's nothing we can do about it. Now, I've got to get to these colors before I have a backup that'll have us here until midnight. I returned to the salon to start my highlights. The workday flew by as my mind whirled with the idea of Evie Marshall raising JC's scissors and driving them into some guy's chest. But love did make people do all sorts of strange things. When we finally closed the shop down for the night, I still couldn't wrap my head around it. I collapsed in the chair at my desk. Whew, I'm glad I'm off tomorrow. You and me both. We were smart coordinating our days off. Maybe we can do some digging into things, Maxine said as she swept the last remaining hair off the floor and into the vacuum. I'm not sure about that, I said, my eyes flitted to the now clean mirror. After that threat, maybe I want to leave this to the cops. Come on, Vic. Do you really think that's going to work? They didn't even take the threat you received this morning seriously. What's it going to take for them to pay attention? I pressed my lips together. I don't know, but I'm not sure if I want to start digging into Evie and her affairs or whatever. She's looking to ruin me, and I'm a little afraid if I get in her way, that threat is going to come to fruition. Maxine plopped down into one of the salon chairs with a sigh. You're right. It's probably best to leave it to the cops. So, what do you say we do some antiquing tomorrow? Oh, yes. I have been interested in looking at the new haul Bea got in. She must have made a killing at that last show she went to. Maxine poked a finger at me. You're on. How's 10? Perfect, I said as I grabbed my purse. Tonight, I made sure I locked both doors, front and back, so no one came into a threatening note, or worse, tomorrow morning. Maxine and I parted ways, and I headed home, deciding to pop a microwavable mac and cheese in for my dinner. I didn't have the energy for anything else, and I needed some comfort food. As it spun around in the machine, I hurried into my bedroom and changed into a comfy pair of pajamas. The night air remained warm, so I grabbed my steaming, cheesy macaroni and fork and a glass of wine and headed out onto my deck. With my feet kicked up, I dug into my hot, creamy dinner as the waves crashed against the beach in front of me. As I sipped my wine, I was reminded of both the blood and the lipstick from the latest 2 events in my salon. Could Evie really have done this? Based on the mounting evidence, it certainly seemed so. I wondered if she'd eventually cave and confess. I certainly couldn't take the pressure of having murdered someone. I couldn't even take the pressure of someone threatening me over a murder I didn't even commit. Here I was, sitting with a microwave mac and cheese and a glass of wine in my pajamas. I wondered if a little push in the right direction could help Evie confess. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my social media feed. Most of the talk about the murder had already died down. That was no good. I needed it to stay fresh in the minds of the community so Evie would confess. So I did something I usually didn't do. I tapped at the top of my feed and wrote a message to post to my feed. First murder, now threats. Someone left a nasty note for me at Affair with Hair. I can't wait until the cops take this murderer off our streets. They have a lead, I'm told. Okay, the last bit was a complete lie, but maybe if Evie thought she was about to be caught, she'd spill her guts. We could only hope. With that plan in the works, I polished off my dinner, finished my wine, and watched the ocean for a few more minutes before I headed to bed. My night was filled with horrible dreams of Evie driving scissors into people's chest, but never getting caught. I woke up the next morning well after the sun had risen in a cold sweat. This really needed to end soon. I crawled out of bed and went straight for the shower. After a cup of coffee and a bowl of cereal, I headed out the door to meet Maxine. Our first stop was always the coffee coven. Maybe I'd hear some more dirt about the murder. When I went inside, Maxine was already ordering our coffees. I scurried over to her, my eyes scanning the coffee shop. "Hey." "Hey yourself," she whispered as she tapped her card on the screen to pay. "Saw your post." "Yeah, I kind of went berserk last night," I said with a shake of my head. "I couldn't take it. If this is Evie, she needs to confess already." I don't think she's going to do that," Maxine said. "Doesn't look like we're going to get any new info here today either. Agatha's not here." The barista handed our coffees to us, and we left the shop behind. "Vic, I think if we want her to confess, we need to do a little digging, get some proof we can use to put her away for good." I heaved a sigh. "I think you're right. Plus, I don't want any more bad press for the Salon." We arrived at Beatrice's antique shop. The bell over her door tinkled as we stepped inside. I didn't see anyone at the counter, so Maxine and I wandered around, checking out all the new items. As I glanced at a music box, whispered voices reached my ears. I leaned back and glanced into the storeroom, spying Agatha and Beatrice in what looked like a heated argument. My heart raced as I inched closer, straining to catch every word. Agatha's voice was sharp, laced with accusation. "Know what you did, Bea," Agatha hissed. My heart skipped a beat at the words. What had the woman done? "And I'm not going to let you get away with it. Fix this or I'll go public." Agatha wagged a finger in Bea's face before she stormed from the room. My pulse quickened. What could Beatrice have done? I barely had time to duck behind a coat tree as Agatha stormed past, her face a mask of fury. What secret was she threatening to expose? I glanced into the storeroom, not spotting Bea. With clammy hands, I raced across the shop to Maxine, who waited at the counter. She grinned at me. "Oh, Vic, Shh, I said as I clamped a hand down on her wrist. "We need to go now." "Huh?" I grabbed the decorative vase out of her hands and set it on the counter. As I did, I noticed a paper with letters underlined. It reminded me of the underlines in the manual. I snatched it from the desk, shoved it in my purse, and dragged her out of the shop. "Vic," she said as we stepped into the bright sunshine. "Sorry, but you didn't see or hear what I did." "Which was?" she asked. "Agatha telling Bea she knows what she did, and she'll go public unless Bea fixes it." "What?" Maxine exclaimed. "Oh, my goodness. Do you think Bea is the killer?" "Why?" I questioned, though the paper I'd found in her shop made me wonder if she was more involved in something. "I don't know, but maybe she did it. Maybe he had something on her. Maybe she passed off some fake antiques or something." I dragged her toward my house. "Let's talk about it on my deck." "Sounds good," she said. We walked up the path to my place and circled around to the deck. Just as I settled into my chaise, my phone rang. I answered with a sigh. "Victoria Fanning." The cold, mechanical voice sent a chill down my spine. "Back off before you wind up dead." My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. My hand shook as I gripped the phone, but I refused to let the fear take over. Whoever was behind this, they were going to pay. Chapter 8. With a shaky hand, I lowered the phone, staring at it. Had I just heard what I thought I'd heard? My stomach churned as the words ripped through me again. Back off before you wind up dead. Another threat, and this one untraceable. I quickly tried to call back, but the number had been clocked. I had no recourse. I considered calling the cops, but what good would it do? They'd tell me it was some kid who wanted to pull a prank. "Vic?" Maxine asked. "You okay?" I murmured, still staring at my screen. No. Who was that? She asked. What? Are you late on your credit card payment or something? No. I stared down at my phone before I finally snapped out of it. No, it was... I swallowed hard, a lump forming in my throat. My eyes found Maxine's, and I pushed myself to tell her. It was another threat. What? Her eyes went wide as her muscles stiffened. Yeah, I said, my mind going over the conversation again. It was almost surreal. Had I really heard a robotic voice tell me to back off before I wound up dead? It all seemed like some sort of bad dream. Was it a man or a woman? Maxine asked. Neither. I mean, it was a robot voice, like one of those voice changer things. Maxine swung her legs over the side of her chaise, her eyes wide. Like in the movies? Yeah, just like that. What did they say? She asked. That I should back off before I wind up dead. I shook all over with a shiver. That's the second threat. Vic, you need to call the cops, Maxine said. I shook my head. What good will that do? They'll just tell me it's people joking, trying to capitalize on the murder. Maxine curled her fingers into fists. I can't believe they don't take things seriously. Someone just died. Was murdered, I corrected. And I know, but they don't seem to care. Sadly, if we want this to be solved, we are going to have to do it ourselves. Maxine slapped her hand against her thigh. That's exactly what I said before. So, when do you want to confront Evie? I pressed my lips together. On one hand, I needed to find more evidence before I pointed my manicured nail at her. But on the other hand, I was sick of being targeted already. I wanted this all to end. I wanted life to go back to normal. And that wasn't going to happen unless someone was behind bars. Could we find more clues to nail Evie's guilty behind to the wall, or would we end up spinning our wheels? Where would we even find more clues? I didn't know the first thing about solving a murder, but I had to press on. Now, I said, no time like the present. We probably aren't going to find any other clues. Let's go by her shop and heckle her a little like she's been doing to me. Yeah, Maxine said, pumping a fist in the air. Let's go. She leapt from her seat, a grin on her face. I wondered if she'd had a nip of something in that coffee to make her so eager to confront a potential murderer. Me? I was a mess. My insides trembled like someone had made me swallow a jumping bean. I suddenly second-guessed myself as I rose, but Maxine grabbed my hand and tugged me forward. I stumbled along next to her, my knees wobbling. Hey, Maxine, I'm not sure this is a good idea after all, I said as we made our way toward town. It's not a bad idea. What's the worst that could happen? She murders us? Maxine offered a dismissive wave at me. Vic, she's not going to kill us in a shop full of people. Or maybe she'll sneak back to my place tonight and make good on her threat. I raised my phone in the air. That's a good point. She's already threatening you, and you're not even doing anything. She could kill you anyway. Good point. That's the second threat I got. It's like she's asking for me to confront her. A surge of bravery shot through me, fueled by the anger over being threatened. I mean, how dare she? She kills a guy in my salon, and as if that's not bad enough, she starts to threaten me over it? Right, Maxine exclaimed. Who does she think she is? We're about to find out, I said as we reached the curl up and die. I swung the door open and stormed inside. Victoria? Evie asked as she made an awful mess of some poor woman's hair. I was temporarily distracted by the bad bleach job, but quickly remembered what I was here for. Yes, me, Victoria. What are you doing here? I've come to confront you. I'm tired of this nonsense from you. Her jaw dropped open, her lips turning into a wide O. It was then that I noticed the shade of lipstick she wore. Definitely the one that I'd scrubbed off my mirror yesterday. She lifted her chin. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? It wasn't bad enough that you killed someone in my shop, but then you had to keep threatening me. Well, I've had it, Evie." I wagged a finger at her. "It ends now, Evie. I'm calling the cops and telling them you're guilty." "I am not," she shouted. "I didn't kill that guy, and I haven't been threatening you." "That's not true," I said. "Yeah," Maxine chimed in. "We know you did it. It's obvious." "What? That guy was a stranger. Why would I kill him?" My eyebrows shot toward my hairline. I don't know. Maybe because you were having a torrid affair with him?" The others in the shop gasped as I leaked the detail before I started to bob my head. "Yeah, that's right. Agatha told me all about it." "Agatha?" Evie asked. "That old gossip from the bookstore?" "And you know she knows everything that goes on around here. And she says you and him were an item. And you killed him in a lover's quarrel, and I believe it." Her features pinched, color rising into her cheeks. Her fingers wrapped tightly around her scissors. Visions of the same thing happening to that man in my shop danced through my mind. "I didn't do any such thing, and I haven't been threatening you." "That's not true again. The first threat Victoria got was written in lipstick on her mirror." Maxine poked a finger at Evie. "In your signature shade." "I'm not the only one who wears this shade in town. It's very popular." "Oh, this has you written all over it, Evie. You want to sink my shop, so you broke in, killed your boyfriend there, then started to threaten me so I would leave you alone. Well, I'm not going to take it. This ends now." I poked a finger at the floor to show her I meant business. "I didn't do it," she growled, "and I can prove it." I crossed my arms, a silent challenge for her to prove her innocence. "All right, go ahead." "I have an alibi," she answered. "What is it?" Maxine demanded. I stared at Evie, waiting for her answer. "I was with someone. Agatha is right. I am having an affair, but not with that stranger. With Tom, from the gas station. We were together at the Starlight Motel. 2 people saw me there before we went into our room." "What?" I gasped, flicking my gaze to Maxine. "Yeah," she said, hanging her head a little. "I didn't want anyone to find out, but I'd rather people know that than think I murdered someone. You can ask at the Starlight. They'll confirm." With a sigh, I glanced at Maxine, arching an eyebrow. She shrugged before she twisted to eye Evie. "All right, we're going to check it out. Don't think you're off the hook just yet." Evie shrugged. "Whatever. It was good enough for the cops." My anger fizzled out, replaced by a sinking feeling in my gut. Evie's alibi was solid, which meant we'd been wrong. Dead wrong. I was supposed to be 1 step ahead, but instead I was chasing my own tail while someone else was out there. Someone who was smart enough to stay hidden. I grabbed hold of Maxine's arm and pulled her toward the door. "Okay, Evie, we'll see." We spilled onto the street seconds later, and I pressed my hand against my forehead. "Oops." "What? You didn't buy that, did you?" Maxine asked. "She has an alibi the cops checked." "Yeah, so the cops thought she was involved. That tells me something." "It tells that the cops vetted this and she's not guilty." I shook my head. How could we be so wrong? She seemed like the obvious suspect. "We'll find out. Let's go to the Starlight Motel." I didn't want to, but it was on our way back to my place, more or less. After questioning a maid and the attendant at the desk, we verified her story. All true. She'd been at the motel that night with Tom, like she'd been every 3 days for the past 2 months. Evie was having an affair, but with the wrong guy. She wasn't our killer. We were stuck. My fingers curled into fists as my frustration brewed as we headed back to my cottage. Black clouds rolled in on the horizon, chasing us through my front door instead of allowing us to sit on the deck and vet our next steps. We made it just as raindrops started to patter on the windows. I whipped up a quick batch of hot chocolate, grabbed the cookies I'd bought from the doughy dolphin, and we settled on the couch. With a sigh, I shook my head. I don't know what to do now. Who is doing this? Maxine wrapped her fingers around her mug, sniffing at the sweet concoction. "We need to make a list. Who else would want to ruin you, Vic?" I shrugged. "There's no one—" "Wait!" I snapped my fingers as I grabbed my phone and toggled to the text message I'd sent to her before I'd stumbled upon the body. "Bill." She stared at the text message. "Oh, my goodness! Hearing from his lawyer? You had every right to fire him." "I know I did, but he's still ornery over it. Maybe he's the one who did it." Maxine pressed her lips together, snagging a cookie. "Could be. I wonder if he has an alibi." "I'm not going over there until we get more proof. We're not confronting another person we don't have good evidence on." "You have a point." She bit into the cookie, pointing the jagged edge at me. "But how are we going to get any? We have no leads." I shifted in my seat, my mind racing as I tried to think of a way to find something on this person who was after me. Suddenly, an idea popped into my mind. "Wait a second. This morning, we had an idea that B could have been involved." "Do you want to confront her?" Maxine asked. "We have some evidence to use against her." I shook my head. "No, this morning when we were in her shop, I found this." I hooked my purse with my pinky off the foyer table behind me and plopped it into my lap. I fished around inside to pull out the paper I'd snagged. I shoved it toward Maxine and waited for her reaction. She stared at it, shrugging. "What is it?" "I don't know, but I think it relates to those manuals I showed you when I was at your place." I dragged the shopping bag toward me, grabbing the manual and pulling it out to show her the similar markings. "What does it mean? Why are some of these letters underlined?" Maxine asked. "That, I don't know, but I think it could be a message or something." Maxine tapped a finger on the manual. "The first few underlined letters spell out the. Do you think this spells out a secret message or something?" "I don't know. Let's see if we can decipher it." I set my mug aside and hurried into my kitchen for a notepad and pencil. When I returned, we put our heads together, listing out all of the underlined letters in order from the manuals before we started to search for words. We stared at the letters for what felt like hours. Each time we thought we had a word, it slipped through our fingers like sand. Maxine jotted down another set of letters, her pencil tapping against the paper. There is... She glanced up at me, eyes wide. "There is a secret room?" After a few different attempts, we came up with the first word being there. I continued down the line, putting slash marks where it made sense, readjusting every few words. Finally, we thought we had it. Maxine and I read it aloud together. "There is a secret room behind the middle mirror in the salon. Use the frame to open the passage." I exchanged a wide-eyed glance with Maxine. A secret room. In my salon. My heart raced as I stood up, the paper crinkling in my hands. Could it be true? Chapter 9. We spent a few minutes staring at the words as my heart raced. How had I not known this? It couldn't be true. There was no way that there was a secret room hidden behind my middle chair's mirror. Why would anyone create a secret message in a set of hairstyling manuals that suggested it? "This can't be true, right?" I asked. Maxine shrugged a shoulder. "I mean, what if it is?" "It can't be." I tossed the paper down on my coffee table as I rose and paced the living room floor. "There's no way. We share a wall on that side with the bookstore." My eyes went a little wider. "The bookstore ran by Agatha, and Agatha made up a lie about Evie. She tried to pin the murder on her." "Yeah, did she do it for a reason?" Maxine asked. "What if she's the guilty party? She could know about the secret passage. Maybe it's even accessible from her store, too." I heaved a sigh. "I just don't buy it." "We could check it out." Thunder rumbled overhead, punctuating her statement as I considered it. "Not now. Not while the shop's open. We'll go after it closes. I don't want anyone to know about this ridiculous thing we're about to search for." "Vic, it could be there," Maxine said. And maybe it'll lead to another set of clues for us to follow up on. It can't hurt to check. I mean, we're stuck. Yeah, and I just accused Evie of murder in front of everyone. We need to do something. All right, we'll wait for the shop to close, then go check it out, Maxine said. I stared out the window at the rain coming down. Shop's closing early today. If we leave now, we can slip in just as the girls leave, and we can grab dinner on the way home to eat while we talk about how stupid we are for even considering this. Wait, Maxine called, waving her hands in the air. We didn't decipher this note from Bees. I plopped onto the couch and looked over her shoulder, grabbing my pencil and notepad. As Maxine read off the letters, I jotted them down before we started to mark words. You need to get the docs from the safe in the hidden room, I read. My features twisted as I glanced at Maxine. Again, this hidden room. Yeah, which makes it seem more and more legitimate. I mean, I think we should take this seriously. I'm taking it seriously. I want to check it out. I just can't believe this. How have we gone on all this time without knowing this? Maxine shrugged. How often do you press on those pieces around the mirror? Never, but I can't believe we never accidentally hit them or something. Maybe we need to press them all, or turn them or something, Maxine answered. I guess we'll find out. We'll give it the old college try, I guess, and see what happens. I knitted my brows. And here is my question. Why did Bea have this note? It's Agatha's shop that borders mine. She should have had the note. Maybe Bea created it to give to Agatha, but never got the chance since Agatha stormed out. I murmured as lightning lit the sky. I don't know. But let's get going and see if we can find this room. Okay, Maxine said with a nod as she rose. Let's go. Ugh, I hope this rain slows up for our walk. Fat chance, I answered, slinging my purse over my shoulder and grabbing 2 big umbrellas from my umbrella stand. Here. Thanks. I always wanted to be a lightning rod. At least you won't be soaked, I answered as I pulled my door open. I opened the umbrella and darted into the rain. Maxine pulled my door closed and followed behind me. We half walked, half ran to the shop, sliding through the door just before the girls locked up. As thunder boomed, I closed my umbrella and stuck it in my holder to drip into the bottom. Vic, Stacy said, everything okay? Yeah, I'm just here to look up a few things before a client tomorrow. You girls can go. Are you sure? JC asked. I feel really bad about not locking up properly. I feel like I may as well have killed that guy. You didn't, honey, I said with a shake of my head. Even if you didn't lock up, they would have found a way in here. None of you girls have anything to feel guilty about. JC hurried across the salon and threw her arms around me. Thanks, Victoria. I really appreciate that. Of course, honey. Now, you girls get out of here. Maxine and I have a few options to vet for a tricky color before we grab some dinner. You want us to grab you something and drop it by? Stacy asked as she grabbed her purse. Nah, we don't know how long we'll be, and I want to eat on my couch. Got it, Stacy said with a grin as she grabbed her raincoat and tugged up her hood. But before we go, though, you are never going to believe who we snagged as a client today. Who? I asked. Mayor Sinclair. He said he wanted to support the salon after all the bad press, Stacy said with a grin. Just walked in and got a clip. Really? Reggie Sinclair got his mop cut here? He did, and I have to say, I really spiffed him up, Stacy said with a grin. Good job, Stacy. It can't hurt to have the mayor on our side. Her smile broadened as she reached the door and waved. See you tomorrow, Victoria. I waved her and JC off, locking the door behind them. Thank goodness they're gone. I really thought they might stay, try to convince us to hang out as a group together, like they really wanted to prove something. Yeah, they feel responsible and don't want to get fired, Maxine said as she crossed to the mirror. I quickly dropped the blinds on the door and closed them before I raced to the other blinds on the large windows overlooking the sidewalk. With a twist of my wrist, I closed them all, shutting us in the shop with privacy. Whoa, it's dark in here, Maxine said as thunder rumbled. Just a second. I flipped on the lights before I joined her in front of the mirror. I stared at my reflection, wondering if it really held a secret. How do you want to tackle this? Maxine asked. I shrugged. No idea. I've never searched for a secret room before. Maxine puckered her lips as she eyed the frame. She stepped forward, pressing one of the decorative corners. Nothing happened. I wasn't surprised, and I crossed my arms. I think we're barking up the crazy tree here, Maxine. Maxine frowned, her eyes still on the frame. I'm going to get this if it kills me. A shiver snaked down my spine at the word choice. I wondered if the man had been in here searching for this when someone had offed him. As Maxine continued to trace the frame, as I darted to the back door to make sure it was locked tight before I checked the front again. What are you doing? Maxine asked. Making sure we're locked in here. I wonder if that guy was in here doing what we're doing right now. Maxine gasped, her eyebrows raising. Do you think? I shrugged. I don't know, but maybe. It seemed like a few other people knew about this supposed hiding spot. Whoever had those vintage styling guides sure knew. And what else would they be doing in my shop? Maybe Bill did it to frame you so he has an easier time winning in court. Winning what? If he ruins my business and sends me to jail, he can't get anything out of me. I heaved a sigh and collapsed into the salon chair. Maxine continued to work with the mirror, but nothing she did opened any secret passages. Give it up, Maxine. There can't be a secret passage here. I bet you someone's playing a prank on me. She twisted to face me. Really? You're now using the police's line on me? Well, I said with a lift of my shoulder, it seems right. I mean, why would they dump those guides in my trash? Seems like a big joke to get me distracted. Keep us focused on finding the secret passage while someone gets away with murder? Maxine pressed her lips together, twisting back to face the mirror. Aw, I really wanted there to be a secret passage in your salon. I mean, it would have been pretty neat, but I really think this is a fool's errand. Maxine frowned at her reflection in the mirror. You're probably right. Well, that stinks. She crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes, before she curled her fingers into fists and pounded against the mirror's corners. You stupid mirror! You're not hiding anything! Maxine's fists connected with the mirror, and for a second the shop fell into an eerie silence. Then, a soft click broke through the stillness. We both froze, staring at the frame as if it had just come alive. I held my breath, my mind racing. Did we actually find it? Oh, no. She twisted to face me, her hands flying up to cover her mouth. Vic, I broke your mirror. I climbed from my seat, my eyes still fixed on the mirror. I don't think so. I did. I broke that beautiful frame that does nothing but make it pretty. I shook my head, my heart pounding hard against my ribs as I stepped toward it. No, Maxine, I think you figured it out. Huh? Maxine asked, wrinkling her nose as she spun to face the mirror. Did you hear that click? I traced my fingers against the indented corners. I think it was the first step to opening the secret passage. I thought you said it wasn't real, Maxine said. I was wrong, I answered as I let my hands slide down to the bottom two corners. I pressed them in at the same time. Another loud click sounded before something screeched. One of my product cabinets popped away from the wall. A rush of musty air swept past me. Vic! Maxine squealed as she hurried over to the cabinet, peering at the dark sliver between it and the wall. I see it. I scrambled over to my purse to dig my cell phone from it. Thunder boomed again, and lightning streaked, illuminating the room through the blinds. Oh, Maxine said as she grabbed her cell phone too. This is so exciting! And in a thunderstorm, too. It doesn't get better than this. I hurried back to the cupboard and grabbed it. It barely moved as I wrapped my fingers around the edge and tugged. Help me, Maxine, I said through clenched teeth. Together, we grabbed and wrangled the cupboard back far enough to slip into the passage beyond. I toggled on my flashlight, and Maxine did the same. Thunder rumbled again as we crept into the narrow space. My heart pounded in my chest like a hammer, each beat louder than the rumbling thunder outside. What were we even doing? I owned a hair salon, not a haunted mansion. And yet, here I was, creeping through a secret passage like a character in a bad horror movie, praying I wouldn't end up like the guy with scissors in his chest. "I don't like it in here," I said, a shiver snaking down my spine as we crept forward. "I think it's exciting," Maxine giggled as she shined her flashlight around. "It's like we're in an old castle with secret passages or something." Except we're not. We're in my shop and someone just died there not long ago. I'm a little worried about becoming trapped in here. Maxine froze, her eyes going wide. "Are you serious?" Yeah, honey, I'm serious. What if someone wanted us to find this so they could lock us in here and kill us too?" "Ew, Vic," Maxine grimaced at me. "Well, it's a possibility." I continued forward, my palms sweaty, glancing over my shoulder at every few seconds to make sure light still shined into the passage from the open cupboard. I hope that doesn't happen." She shivered next to me. Ahead of us, the floor dropped away. As we approached, I stared down a crumbling stone staircase. "Well, this looks unsafe." "Pretty sure they weren't worried about the building code in their secret passage." Maxine grabbed hold of the rusty metal railing. "Maxine!" I shouted. "What?" she hissed as she crept down the stairs. "We have to see where this goes." "Into a rat-infested hole," I said as I white-knuckled the railing, holding on for dear life. "Ew!" Maxine whined as we continued down. A musty odor filled my nose as we stepped into the room at the end, like damp wood and forgotten secrets. The faint echoes of our footsteps bounced off the stone walls, and the air felt colder here, as though we'd stepped into a different time. My flashlight wobbled in my shaking hand, casting long, eerie shadows that danced against the walls. A first pass with my flashlight didn't show rats, but something glinted in the distance. I inched forward toward it. "Maxine, look! A safe!" "I wonder what's inside," she whispered. I studied the dial, wondering if we could find the code somewhere or break into it. As I pondered the question, a noise reached my ears. My heart skipped a beat. Someone was knocking at my shop door. My heart lurched in my chest at the sudden sound. A knock, echoing through the empty shop above us, sent a shiver down my spine. My hand flew to Maxine's arm, and we both froze. Who could it be? Was it someone looking for us, or someone coming to make sure we never left? Chapter 10. My eyes went wide, and I glanced at Maxine, my features questioning. Another knock sent my pulse spiraling even higher. A wave of nausea passed over me. Who could be knocking on the door of my closed shop? "What am I going to do?" I hissed. Maxine lifted her shoulders in a shrug. We'll have to go back up there and pretend nothing is happening." "You're right," I said with a nod. "We'll get rid of this pest, then try to crack this safe." "How are we going to crack a safe?" Maxine asked as I hurried across the dark space toward the stairs. "I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get a stethoscope or something. We'll figure that out after we get rid of whoever is up there banging at the door." I took the steps 2 by 2, knowing I would regret that tomorrow morning, but I couldn't afford for anyone to get suspicious. Anyone could be the murderer. "Coming!" I shouted down the hall, hoping my voice carried to them. I raced the length of the hall, cursing my bad knees from all the time I'd spent on my feet in the shop. Maxine hurried behind me. We both skidded into the shop, and I pushed the cabinet closed. The corners of the mirror popped back out as the passage closed. Maxine grabbed a magazine and dropped into a chair, trying to appear casual. "Maxine," I hissed as I crossed to the door. "Your hair!" She glanced in the mirror, brushing away a cobweb before she reopened the magazine. "How about me?" I asked. She glanced over her shoulder. "You're good." I nodded and crossed to the door, unlocking it and pushing it open slightly. "Agatha, what are you doing here, honey?" "Checking on you," she said, peering through the door into the shop. "You're never open this late on a Wednesday." "No, I'm not usually here, but with everything going on, I just stopped in." "And it took you that long to answer the door?" Agatha rose to her tiptoes, peering past me. "Oh, hi, Agatha," Maxine called with a wave. "How are you?" "Well, just fine, but I was just saying to Victoria that it's odd for you ladies to be in here at this time of night on a Wednesday." "Oh, yeah," she said with a nod. "Yeah, crazy stuff going on right now, so we're here, "Why?" Agatha asked as she continued to let her gaze roam around my shop. "Well, someone was murdered in here, so, I said with a shrug as sweat slicked my skin. "I'm beefing up my security." "Beefing up your security? Like getting a security system?" "Something like that," I murmured before I started to tug on the door to close it. "Look, Agatha, I hate to be rude, but we're in the middle of something important, and I'm also really hungry, so I'd like to finish up here." She blocked me from closing the door, wedging her foot inside. "Oh, I don't mean to hold you up, but with all your improvements, it's pretty loud in the bookshop. People are complaining they can't think when they're reading blurbs." I tried to hold my temper, not wanting to make another enemy so quickly, but Agatha was on my last nerve. "Really sorry, but we'll be finishing up soon." "Great," she said with a sweet smile that I could tell was fake. She gave the shop another narrow-eyed scan before she removed her foot and stepped back. I pulled the door shut and flicked the lock, collapsing against it with a sigh. "Ugh, that was close." "Yeah," Maxine said. "I think she may be on to us. Did you see the way she was looking around here?" I nodded. "And this secret passage butts up against her shop. I wonder if she has access to it." "I don't know, but she's still open for another 2 hours tonight. We have to move fast to get that safe cracked." I bobbed my head. "Right, but we should fake her out. Make her think we left." "Oh, right," Maxine said. "Good idea. We'll turn off the lights, leave the shop, make a show of going past her shop, like wave at her or something, then circle around through the alley to the back door, come back in the shop, open the passage, and crack the safe." I nodded, grabbing my purse and shoving my cell phone into it. I cursed as I realized I'd left my flashlight on the entire time. I wondered if Agatha noticed it. The woman and her blue hair would have 10 stories circulating around town by the end of the night. With our stuff in hand, I left the blinds closed, turned off all the lights, and unlocked the front door. We stepped out into the damp air, the rain over, though everything remained wet. I locked the door and shoved my keys in my purse. Maxine and I walked slowly past Agatha's shop, making a point to glance inside and wave. She didn't acknowledge us. With a click of my tongue, I grabbed Maxine's arm. "Come on, we need to make it obvious." I pushed through the door into her shop, my eyes scanning the place. Was the secret passage accessible behind one of those bookshelves? "Victoria! Maxine! What a surprise!" Agatha said. "Yeah, we figured we'd stop in and grab a book or two, to make up for the trouble." "Oh, well, you didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. Did you have a genre in mind?" "Oh, mystery, or something fun." She fluttered her eyelashes at me. Snob. "I have a new set of cozies that may be right up your alley." She waved a hand toward a bin of books on our left. I pretended to browse them, grabbing one about a mother-daughter sleuthing team, while Maxine picked up a mystery with talking pets. We checked out, shoving the books into our bags, and headed out. "Wow, Vic, making it obvious cost me like $15. I'll reimburse you, I promised as I dragged her to the alley. We hurried down it and circled back to my shop. I unlocked the back door, and we crept inside, tiptoeing into the main room. I pressed a finger to my lips as I pulled my cell phone from my purse and gently set it on one of the chairs. Maxine followed my lead. We both crept to the mirror. I eased the 2 corners of the mirror into the wall. Maxine took the other 2, wincing as the click echoed. I pressed my finger to my lips before I poked it at the cupboard. She nodded, and together we inched the thing open to reveal the passage as quietly as we could. Once we were in the passage again, we crept forward silently until we finally stood in front of the safe. "Do you think we can guess the combination?" Maxine asked. "I wouldn't know where to begin," I answered with a shrug. Wait, some of the numbers were underlined in those styling guides. Maxine rubbed her chin. "You're right. I remember that, but didn't bother with them because I thought we needed the letters, not the numbers." "Me too. Do you remember any of them?" I searched my memory for the numbers. 5, Maxine said. That was when I first noticed it. I tapped my phone's notepad and typed a 5. 31. What was the last one? Maxine scratched her head. It was 15. No, I said with a shake of my head. 21. Are you sure? I grabbed the dial, twisting it. If I'm wrong, we'll try 15. I twisted the dial, inputting 5, then 21, then 31, and tried the handle. Nothing. Okay, maybe it was 15, I murmured. After wiggling the dial back and forth, I tried 5, 15, 31. That didn't work either. With a groan, I scrunched my face at the stupid safe. Okay, neither worked. How do people open these in the movies? C4, Maxine said with a nod. They stick it on there, then run back and hit the button and it blows up. Okay, well, we don't have C4, and none of those combinations worked. Wait, we didn't try them all. I nodded. Yeah, we did. I did 5, 21, 31. When that didn't work, I did 5, 15, 31. Yeah, but those could be in any order, right? So we need to try 5, 31, 21, 21, 5, 31, 21, 31. Yeah, I get it, you're right. I gave her a dismissed wave as I tried the next combination. It didn't work. I pressed on, continuing to try different orders. My fingers trembled as I spun the dial. What was I even doing? Every instinct screamed at me to walk away. I wasn't a detective. I was just a hairdresser. But something deeper, something stronger than my fear, kept me twisting that dial. If we didn't crack this mystery soon, I knew we'd never be safe. Each twist and turn of the dial made sweat bead on my brow. What if none of them worked? Then again, what if one did? What would we find in this safe? Information worth killing for, or nothing but dust and cobwebs? My breath came in shallow gasps as I twisted the last number, feeling the resistance in the handle. Maxine held her breath beside me. For a second, nothing happened. Then, with a loud click, the safe creaked open. "Vic," Maxine said with a hop and a clap. "You got it!" I grinned, but it wore off quickly as I aimed my flashlight at the safe interior. A lone folder sat inside. Maxine and I exchanged a glance before I reached with a shaky hand and pulled it out. "What do you think is in here?" I asked as I ran my hand over the plain exterior. "I don't know, but it seems that it was worth killing for, and worth hiding in a secret code. Should we take it home and read through it over some dinner?" Maxine's eyes lit up, and she rubbed her hands together. "Oh, I can't wait to dive in. I'm ready to sit down right here and read it." "I thought I saw a rat, and I know I saw a spider the size of my hand," I said. Maxine grabbed the folder, then my wrist, and dragged me toward the stairs. "Why didn't you say something before?" "Because I didn't want to be left down here with the critters," I said as we hurried up the stairs. I wouldn't miss traipsing up and down these. As we hit the hallway, we tiptoed as quickly as possible, not wanting to alert Agatha next door. With the utmost care, we gently pushed the cabinet back into place until it clicked, before we grabbed our purses and raced through the back door. The cool night air hit the sweat on my forehead, sending a shiver down my spine. I glanced at the folder Maxine carried under her arm. "Hey, maybe we should stow that thing in my purse before we hit the diner for takeout. I don't want anyone to see it." "Oh, right," she said. I opened my bag, and she shoved it in. We used the alley to access the main street, crossed to the diner, and placed our order. A few people stared at me, but no one approached me, thankfully. We managed to get in and out with our takeout without too much trouble. As we headed toward my place, our footsteps echoing off the sidewalk, my eyebrows knitted. I swore I heard another set of footsteps. I stopped and twisted to glance behind us, but found nothing. "Vic?" Maxine questioned. "I thought I heard something." We continued down the sidewalk, and the footsteps started again. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at Maxine, but she was too busy juggling the takeout bags. Was I imagining it? No. There it was again, a soft rhythm matching our own. My skin prickled. I flipped on my phone's camera, pretending to check a message, but angling it behind us. My blood ran cold. A shadow moved, just out of view. Someone was following us. Chapter 11. My throat parched as I slowly lowered my phone, my heart rising into my throat. Sweat beaded on my brow again. Blood rushed into my ears as I debated on what to do next. The darkness felt thick, pressing in on us as our footsteps echoed in the empty street. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the sound of distant thunder. Maxine kept her gaze straight ahead, but I could feel her tension. It wasn't just my imagination. Someone was back there, watching, waiting. Every shadow felt like a threat. "Maxine," I hissed as I forced myself to keep walking. "What?" she asked. "Don't turn around, but there's someone following us." "What?" she exclaimed. "Shh," I said. "Don't call attention to the fact that we know. What should we do?" "I don't know. Call the police?" "And say what? There's a guy walking behind us, and I think he's following me because I found some secret files in a passage hidden behind my cupboard?" Maxine grimaced as she shrugged. "When you say it like that..." "Right, but I don't want to go home. I don't even lock my doors. I'd have to run around the whole house locking stuff. He could get in by the time I'm done." Maxine slowed her steps. "We could circle back to my place." "He'll probably follow us there. That doesn't help." "Yeah, plus your place is way nicer. I was looking forward to listening to the ocean while we ate and read those files." I raised my phone to glimpse over my shoulder again. My eyebrows furrowed, and I raised the phone higher, shifting it around to get a better view. "Is he still there?" I stopped and twisted to scan the sidewalk. "No. He must have veered off. Maybe he saw that we noticed him." "Or he's lying in wait." Maxine, stop saying that. Let's just get back to my place on the double so I can lock up all the doors." Maxine nodded. "I'll keep an eye on the sidewalk behind us. You go ahead." "No, we're not splitting up. That's how people die in the movies." "That's true." Maxine wrinkled her nose and bobbed her head. "We'll stick together. Just be quick locking those doors." "I will," I said, my voice still shaking as I glanced over my shoulder again. The sidewalk was completely deserted. As we made it to my place, I started to wonder if I imagined the whole thing. Had there actually been someone who had been following us? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just some random guy in a dark hood who was just on his way home from work. Still, the moment we pushed into my front door, I raced to the slider in my kitchen and flicked the lock before I stomped on the footlock. When I flew past to go into my bedroom to lock the slider there, Maxine was putting the chain lock on the door. As I repeated the process to lock the exterior door in my bedroom, Maxine shouted from the living room, "Should I check the bathroom? Make sure he's not hiding in there?" "Go ahead, honey, but I doubt it." The rustle of the takeout bags came closer before Maxine ducked inside and tugged back the shower curtain, finding the tub-shower combination empty. I checked my spare bedroom, even dropping to my knees to check under the bed. Maxine tugged open the closet doors. "Did you check your closet?" "I didn't," I answered. By the time I climbed to my feet, she was racing into my bedroom to peer into my closet. She appeared in the hall a moment later. "Clear." "We should be okay then," I answered, my heart still beating a little too hard. Maxine bobbed her head. "Look, Vic, if you want me to stay here tonight, I'd be happy to." We shuffled down the hall, winding through my living room and placing the takeout bags on the table overlooking the deck. I stared out over the dark clouds still racing up the coastline, a shiver snaking down my spine. I don't know. Maybe I misread the situation. Maybe he was just walking along, minding his own business. And maybe he was following you like you said. You should listen to your gut. Well, if I'm being honest, I don't want you to have to walk home alone, so maybe you should stay. "Okay," Maxine said as she unloaded our food, checking each container before she set one in front of me. "I just may need to borrow a few things." "Of course," I said as I pulled my spaghetti dinner closer. "What'll you have to drink? I've got iced tea, soda, lemon water." "Water's fine, but I will take another hot chocolate after this while we go over whatever evidence we stumble across in that folder." I rose and crossed to my refrigerator, grabbing my pitcher and pouring 2 glasses of water. I grabbed real silverware so we didn't have to use the plastic stuff. "You're on. I can't get warm tonight." "Well, it looks like another storm is rolling in." Maxine poked a finger at the black clouds that approached from down the beach. I plopped into the chair, setting our waters in front of us. "Yeah, just in time for us to reveal whatever secrets we found in that secret room." "Perfect atmosphere for revealing hidden secrets." Maxine arched an eyebrow as the first hints of thunder echoed in the distance. I twirled my noodles around my fork, scooping up some of the thick sauce before I took a bite. "Watch it be nothing." "Really? A folder in a safe in a secret passage has nothing in it?" Maxine bit into her burger, her eyebrows shooting toward her hairline. I shrugged. I'm still rattled from the whole potentially being followed thing. Maybe I am hoping there's nothing in that folder, because then that means we probably weren't followed. Who would follow us if we've got a worthless folder of receipts from 50 years ago? "Well, I hope it tells us who the killer is." Maxine dipped a fry into her ketchup and swirled it around. I wrinkled my nose. "I'm not sure it will be that easy. I mean, the dead guy didn't exactly jot down the name of his murderer, stuff it into a folder, and wander down to the safe to put it in there before he sat down in my chair to die. I mean, it could have happened that way." I shot Maxine an unimpressed glance as I twirled some more spaghetti around the tines of my fork. "Or not," she said with a teasing grin. "Well, maybe it'll contain something that'll help us figure out if B did this or Bill. Or someone else." "Now you're on to someone else?" Maxine furrowed her brow. I shrugged as my attention went out the window to the lightning streaking across the sky. I don't know. Why would B do it? Maxine grabbed another fry, swirling it in ketchup before taking a thoughtful bite. "I don't know, Vic. B seems shady, but would she really kill someone over an antique shop? Then again, people have killed for less." She raised her eyebrows, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. "And I have no idea why Bill would have done it either, but who knows?" Thunder rumbled as Maxine chewed her burger. "Well, let's hope some evidence as to who did this is in that file." We polished off the rest of our meal and dumped the takeout containers in the trash before I whipped up another batch of hot chocolate while Maxine moved our pieces of pie from the takeout containers to plates. With forks in our hands, we took our sweet treats to the living room, settling on the couch. Maxine grabbed my remote, flipping on the television. We found an old movie complete with a screaming female lead as the thunder and lightning intensified outside. I scooped up the last bite of my Oreo pie and popped it in my mouth before setting my plate aside. With a quick sip of my hot chocolate, I fished the folder out of my purse. "Okay, let's see what we've got here." Maxine wrapped her hands around her mug and leaned closer to me. I can't wait. My hands shook as I opened the folder, part of me wishing we'd found nothing but dust in that safe. What if this only led to more trouble? I wasn't a detective, and every new discovery seemed to pull us deeper into a dangerous game. But I had to know the truth, even if it scared me. My brows furrowed. The paper on the top of the stack seemed to be a deed. A deed for my competitor's Salon. It seemed Evie's Curl Up and Die wasn't owned by Evie. At least, not solely by Evie. The deed clearly showed Donald Harris as part owner of the building and business. Does that say the victim was an owner in Evie's Salon? Maxine asked. My finger tapped the print on the page. Looks like it. I flipped to the next page, finding a canceled check to the tune of $60,000. The memo said, "Startup fees, Evie's Salon." Not only is he part owner of the business and building, but it looks like he gave her some hefty money to start. Wow, Maxine said, grabbing the check, her eyes wide. Look at that money! Yeah, I sure wish I could write a check like that. You and me both. So, what does this mean? I took the check back from her and placed it back in the folder. Well, they were business partners, which could give her motive, but we know she's clear, so this doesn't help us. Do you think all the rest of the papers in there refer to their business arrangements? Let's find out, I answered as I set those aside and moved on to the next paper. I grabbed the next paper, scanning what looked like an email. Maxine gasped. That's to Bill! I know, I answered, my palms turning sweaty. He's trying to open a salon and asked the Vic for money, but Donald Harris didn't think it was a wise idea. He says here in his response that 3 salons in a town our size is too many. Ouch, I bet that burned Bill's butt, Maxine said. He could have gotten mad, maybe had a heated argument, and he killed him. Could be. And they'd have good reason to meet in my salon. Looks like Bill goes to the top of the suspect list. Give me that, let's put it in a new pile, Maxine said. I handed her the page, and she set it on the coffee table. Bill, suspect number 1. I bobbed my head before I grabbed the next set of papers. These ones showed that Donald Harris was also part owner in the antique shop. Wow, this guy must have had tons of money. He also owns part of the antique shop. Yeah, Maxine said as she glanced over my shoulder at the paper. Now it looks like maybe B goes to the top of the list. That's motive. And we heard Agatha telling her that she knew what she did. Was what she did murder? I dutifully dumped the deed onto the list of suspects on the coffee table. She's definitely a suspect. Who's next? Maxine asked. I grabbed the next piece of paper, detailing a loan given to Agatha Fletcher. The emails behind it indicated her bookstore had gotten into some financial trouble when she'd bought a number of first editions that she couldn't sell. She'd gotten the town's favorite investor to prop her up, but she'd recently been late on some payments. Oh, she's definitely a suspect, Maxine said as she grabbed the papers from my hand and placed them on the pile. Late on loan payments. She could have killed him so she didn't have to keep paying him, and she could keep her shop. Yeah, I murmured, my mind spinning as I tried to think through which of the 3 people on my coffee table could have done the fatal deed. Looks like there's one last set of papers in there. Who else did he own in this town? Maxine's eyes went wide, and she grabbed my arm. Vic, he doesn't own part of Affair with Hair, does he? No, I said with a shake of my head. I own that myself, and I'd never have it any other way. Maxine swiped the back of her hand across her forehead. Good thing. I'd hate to suspect you of murder. Hey, I said playfully. I know I thought you did it, but you can't think I'm capable of murder. I don't, she answered with a pat on my shoulder. Now, who else is in there? I grabbed the last set of papers and shuffled through them. This is a set of campaign donations to Reginald Sinclair. The mayor? Maxine asked. Yeah, I answered with a nod. But why would he kill the guy for donating to him? Maxine shrugged. That doesn't make sense. It must be one of the other three. I closed the folder, staring at the 3 people we'd flagged as our prime suspects. It seemed quite a few people had motive, and which one of them was a murderer? My head spun as I stared at the pile of papers on the table. It seemed like everyone in Crystal Cove had a motive. Bill, Bea, Agatha. Even the mayor had connections to this guy. It was hard to believe I was living in a town where so many people had secrets worth killing for. How had I missed this before? Was there anyone I could truly trust? Chapter 12. Gray clouds floated through the sky the next morning as the remnants of last night's storm slowly moved up the coast. I stared at the roiling ocean under them, noticing how angry it remained despite the calm weather. I hadn't managed much sleep. After Maxine and I had debated motives, and even tried to recreate the murder, we'd gone to bed while the storm raged outside. My exhaustion from the day's events hadn't been enough to put me to sleep. Instead, I'd stared at my ceiling, intermittently lit by the streaks of lightning, my mind refusing to stop vetting idea after idea, motive after motive. I hadn't come to any new conclusions after the night-long thought session. Instead, all it left me with was more questions and puffy eyes. And I had no time for either. I had a salon to run. I reminded myself I was one of the few businesses in town that wasn't owned by Donald Harris. That thought alone made me throw back my covers. Puffy eyes or not, I wanted my business to be a success. And due to that, I had to do some cuts and colors today and show the town of Crystal Cove that not even a murder could ruin me. After a quick shower, I got dressed for the day before I headed into my kitchen to start the coffee maker. Maxine, her hair still rumpled from bed, wandered in a few moments later in her borrowed pajamas and robe. She yawned and headed straight for the coffee without a word. She slumped onto a stool at my counter and took a sip before she finally raised her gaze to me. "Did you get any sleep?" "Not really. You?" I asked. Not a wink. I kept wondering which of those 3 killed him. And you know what? I can't come up with any answers. I mean, one of these people who we have known, we've talked to, we've worked with, one of them killed a man, took a pair of scissors and... She clicked her tongue as she made a stabbing motion. Stabbed him right in the chest. I know, I said with a shake of my head as the first glimpse of sun peeked through the dark clouds. I can't imagine it either. I keep trying to picture one of them doing it, and it's surreal. I agree. She let her head fall into her hands with a sigh. And I don't know where to look next. Me either, I said with a shrug. And I am not accusing someone else without more proof. I do not want another situation like we had with Evie. I don't blame you. Although we only have a 2/3 chance of being wrong, Maxine said with a shrug. And 1/3 chance of being right. I poured more coffee into my mug and sipped it. I'm going to need way more coffee than this. You and me both. Just let me get ready. Oh, do you mind if I raid your closet? Not at all, honey. Take what you need. You don't want people to think you're doing the walk of shame. Nope. And I can't very well say I stayed here so we could discuss murder suspects, Maxine said as she hopped off the stool, taking another long sip of her coffee before she set the mug down and dashed toward the bedrooms. I stared out the window as the storm clouds continued to clear. With a deep sigh, I realized, despite identifying 3 suspects, we'd made very little progress on the case. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't a detective, after all. With a scoff, I took another sip of my coffee before I tugged on the door handle to my slider. It didn't budge. My lips tugged into a frown as my gaze shifted down, and I recalled that I'd locked every door in the place last night when I'd thought we were being followed. I hated how paranoid I'd already become with this murderer still on the loose. I kicked my toe at the footlock as I flicked the other lock and slid the door open. Damp air sent a shiver down my spine as I stepped onto my deck. I countered it by taking another sip of the warm coffee. The drink didn't help with my anxiety over the current situation. How could we figure out who the murderer was? We had no leads, no clues. Too many people were suspects. I couldn't imagine how the cops sorted through all of this, but I guess they had more clues than we had. I glanced over my shoulder at the papers still sitting on the coffee table. Should we pass those along to the police? With another sip of my coffee, I stared out over the angry ocean. Funny how the cold light of day made everything seem less scary. I wasn't afraid of someone breaking into my place now, although I'd still be locking my doors when I left for the salon. I didn't want to come home to any surprises. As Maxine emerged in a borrowed outfit, I stepped back into the house, sliding the door shut and locking it. "Ready?" "Yep," Maxine said. I rinsed my cup and stuck it and Maxine's in the dishwasher before I crossed to the coffee table and scooped up the papers. I slid them back into the folder and stuffed it in my bag. "You taking those with you?" Maxine asked. "Yeah, just in case we want to discuss them over lunch or something." "Only if we're lunching alone. I'm not discussing this with any of the other girls," Maxine said, swinging her bag over her shoulder. "Me either. That's the last thing we need." I unlocked the front door and pulled it open. Maxine slid through in front of me, and I yanked it closed, locking it with my keys before I stepped onto my winding path toward the sidewalk. "Still a little afraid someone may be following you?" I bobbed my head at her question. "I'm not taking any chances until this maniac is off the streets." "You want me to run by my place and grab some stuff so I can stay with you?" Normally I'd say no, but I'm still rattled after what happened last night. Although, now I'm wondering if I was just being paranoid. "It doesn't hurt to be safe, Vic," Maxine said as we reached the coffee shop. We headed inside, both of us yawning widely after the lack of sleep. "You're right." I scanned the place, wondering if I could overhear any scoop today, but I didn't see our favorite gossipers sitting at any of the tables. I puckered my lips as I grabbed my pre-made iced coffee from Sandy and spun to lean against the counter as we waited for Maxine's drink of choice. No Agatha. No. Maxine scanned the place over her shoulder. "Too bad. We could have used her gossip." "Unless she's the killer," I murmured. "You ladies talking about the murder?" Sandy asked as she snapped the lid onto Maxine's latte and passed it over to her. "Yeah," I answered with a nod. "I can't believe they don't have any leads yet." "Oh, supposedly they do. They have some surveillance footage. It doesn't identify the person specifically, but it has to show something, right?" Sandy shrugged. "Did you hear that from Tim?" Maxine asked. Sandy bobbed her head, indicating she'd heard the information from her cop boyfriend. "Shh, you didn't hear that from me. I'm just telling you because it must be rough knowing someone was killed in your shop." "It is," I answered. "Thanks. I hope they catch the person soon." "Me too. I don't like this. Murders never happen in Crystal Cove." I flashed my crossed fingers at her before I slid my sunglasses on and pulled Maxine toward the door. "Have a good one, Sandy." "You too," she called as we darted out the door. Maxine glanced over her shoulder as we left the coffee shop behind. "Do you think they really have surveillance footage, or are they just saying that to put people at ease?" "We're going to find out over lunch. I'm going to that police station and see if they have it or not." "Vic," Maxine exclaimed, "they're not going to just show it to you." "I know that," I said with a shake of my head. "That's why you're going with me." "Huh?" Maxine asked, her nose wrinkled. "You're going with me. You'll create a distraction while I check their files and see what I can find." "Victoria!" Maxine almost screamed. "We can't do that." "We have to do something. We need to figure out who killed that guy and fast." Maxine ground to a halt, spinning to face me. "Why? Maybe we should let the police handle this." "What happened to the woman who was plowing into the secret passage last night?" I asked. "Where did she go?" "Not after a murderer!" Maxine exclaimed. "Although, I get it. I'm unnerved too. But I'm not sure I want to do something illegal. It won't be. Just faint or something. While the cop is distracted, I'll look through his evidence file. Oh, Maxine said as we resumed our walk. I may be able to do that. Did I ever tell you I took an acting class in my younger years? I was pretty good at it. My teacher said I was very natural. Good. Then you can pull this off, and I'll swipe some more evidence. Then maybe we can figure out who did it and get some sleep tonight. We're not skipping lunch for this, right? I mean, we're going at lunch, but we can still get lunch, right? Maxine asked as we reached the shop. Definitely. I'm too tired to go without lunch. I jangled my keys to find the right one before shoving it in the lock. We entered the shop, and I opened the blinds that I'd left closed the night before during our sleuthing mission. I dumped my purse behind the desk when I finished and woke my computer, checking my book for the day. At least I had some breathing room today, with only a few cuts in the morning and no intensive colors. A few of the other girls joined us shortly after my first client walked in. The morning seemed to drag by with the knot in my stomach growing tighter with each passing moment. I hoped we could pull off the coup at the police station. I needed a break in this case. When my last client of the morning walked out the door with a brand new cut that looked amazing on her face shape, I swallowed hard, trying to stop my hands from shaking as I glanced over at Maxine. With a grin, she whipped the cape off her last cut of the morning. While she swept the floor, I cashed out the client and sent her along her way. All right, ladies, I said as I rose, trying to steady my voice and my knees. We're stepping out for some lunch. Anybody want anything? My question was met with shakes of their heads, so Maxine and I grabbed our purses and left the salon behind. Geez, I never thought that morning would end, Maxine said as we headed for the police station. Me either, although I'm not sure I'm glad it did. I will be happier when this is over. Me too, and we have some evidence. I pumped a fist in the air. Yeah, let's think positive. We're going to end up with some evidence, I know it. Then we'll solve this stupid case. Maxine nodded as the police station loomed in front of us. I sucked in a long breath before I grabbed the door handle and swung it open, striding inside. Can I help you? The officer at the front desk asked. Yes, I'm Victoria Fanning. I own the salon where... The murder happened, yep, she answered. Right, I said with a nervous chuckle. Anyway, I was wondering if I could talk to the officer in charge of the case. That's Detective Reynolds. He's on the second floor, the third desk on the right. Third on the right, I said with a nod. Thank you. I grabbed hold of Maxine's wrist and pulled her toward the stairs leading up. We climbed them, arriving on the second floor. Desks spread out in front of us, surrounded by offices on outer walls. Third desk on the right, I murmured as I spotted it and made a beeline to it. No one sat in the chair. We may not even need Maxine's superb acting skills. I scanned the desk as I arrived, my fingers tightening on my purse straps. I spotted a file labeled Salon Murder and, after exchanging a glance with Maxine, reached for it when a voice stopped me. Excuse me. I twisted to find a bulky guy storming toward me. His hair was cropped way too close to his head. I didn't know who cut his hair, but they messed it up badly. He barreled toward us like a bull in a china shop, his jaw clenched and his brow furrowed. He had the kind of posture that dared you to challenge him. Excuse me, what do you think you're doing? His voice was like gravel scraping across pavement. Are you Detective Reynolds? I asked. I am. What do you think you're doing? Oh, well, I started, when Maxine wobbled around. Oh, she cried as she reached for the officer, collapsing against him. Oh, I'm so dizzy. Oh, help me. Lady, what's wrong? I'm dizzy, she practically screamed at him before she collapsed into him. He held her weight, easing her to the floor. She thrashed her head back and forth, murmuring. Maybe some water or something, I said. He nodded and raced off to an area marked kitchen. I opened the folder quickly and shuffled through it, finding some stills of a CCTV camera. I snatched them and shoved them into my purse, closing the folder and stepping back to give Maxine a concerned stare as he hurried back with a paper cup. "Oh," Maxine said as he lifted her head to give her some water. "Oh, that's better. Oh, thank you."
"Should I call the paramedics?"
"No," Maxine said with a shake of her head. I think I'm okay. I just need some food. Vic, can we grab some lunch?"
"Yeah, I think we should," I answered with a nod. Maxine scrambled to her feet, clinging to me. I wrapped an arm around her and led her toward the door. Wait, why were you looking for me?" Detective Reynolds asked.
"Oh, just wanted to say that someone broke into my shop again. So, if you could find the killer, that'd be great." He screwed up his face as I hurried toward the stairs with Maxine in tow. We scrambled down the stairs and out the door into the now sunny day. "Did you get it?" Maxine asked breathlessly. "Yep, I got still shots from the surveillance camera. We can look at them when we get home." "I only have one client this afternoon," Maxine said. "I'll run home after and grab some stuff, then meet you back at the shop." "I have 2 cuts. I'll be ready when you get back." We grabbed a quiet bite at a local burger stand, ate, then headed back to the shop to finish up our last clients. As I was checking out my last cut, Maxine returned with her overnight bag. I cleaned up after my last client, stowed all my tools, and grabbed my purse. After saying goodbye to the girls, Maxine and I ducked out of the shop and headed for my place, talking about what we'd order in to eat as we discussed the latest clue. When we made it to my beach house, I slid the key into the lock, but something was wrong. The lock gave way too easily, like the door was expecting me. My heart lurched. I pushed it open, and the metallic scent of disturbed air hit me. Inside, my living room was a war zone. Cushions thrown, drawers yanked out, papers scattered like someone had been desperate to find something. My throat tightened as my pulse raced. Someone had broken in and tossed the place while I'd been at work. Chapter 13. I stepped into my place, my head swimming and my heart sinking. Blood rushed through my ears as I stared at the mess, a sickening feeling creeping over me as a cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Shards of broken glass crunched under my feet as I stepped inside. The couch cushions were thrown to the floor, drawers yanked out of the side tables, and papers strewn everywhere like confetti at a nightmare party. A faint whiff of cologne lingered in the air, a smell I hadn't noticed before. "Vic!" Maxine hissed, grabbing me and pulling me back as she dug in her purse to find her phone. "You can't go in there! The perp could still be in there. We need to find somewhere safe to wait until the cops clear the place." I grabbed her wrist. "We can't call the police. I don't want to explain to them that we have evidence we didn't give to them, and I stole some pictures from the police station earlier." "I mean, it's not like they can't reprint them," Maxine said with a shrug. "But seriously, Vic, I think we need to call the police." I shook my head. "I'm going in there." With my purse heaved higher on my shoulder, I stepped inside, reaching for the baseball bat I kept hidden near the door. I grabbed it and inched forward with it raised over my head. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed off the walls as I slid my foot forward through the clutter all over the floor. "The police are on their way, and I have a bat, and I'm not afraid to use it." I crept toward the hallway leading to my bedrooms and swung around, bat at the ready. I spotted no one. I crept down the hall and checked both bedrooms, their closets, and the bathrooms. Empty. Returning to the living room, I checked the kitchen. The slider to my deck was open, but no one was there. I let the bat fall to my side with a sigh of relief. "Clear," I called to Maxine. The front door closed, and the lock engaged as Maxine closed us into the safety of my wrecked house. I dumped the bat at the door and set my purse on the entryway table. With a frown, I scanned the wreckage. "This is going to take forever to clean up." Maxine clapped me on the shoulder. "I'm going to change, then we'll tackle this. Don't worry, Vic. We'll have it cleaned up in no time." I wasn't as convinced, but I wanted out of these clothes, so I left the living room behind and followed Maxine down the hall, ducking into my own room as she shut herself in the guest room. Within 5 minutes, we were in comfier clothes and wading through the jumble in my living room. "At least they didn't hit the bedrooms," I answered. Maxine slid a drawer back into my side table, and I collected its contents to replace. "I wonder if we scared them off?" "Maybe," I said, a shiver shaking me. "That's frightening that we may have been that close to them." Maxine bobbed her head, sliding a cushion onto my couch. "I know. We need to solve this murder, Vic, before one of us gets hurt. This is getting dangerous." "I know." I folded my throw blanket and tossed it back onto the back of the couch. "Maybe we'll be able to identify the killer from the evidence I got from the police station." "After we order food," Maxine said. "Yeah, and I'm using the leave on doorstep option. There's no way I'm opening the door to anyone." "I don't blame you. I'd actually ask them to leave it on the deck. Then we can see that they're gone." I poked a finger at her as she restored the cushions on my armchair. "That's a good idea." Pulling up the ordering app, I tapped on the screen, selecting our meals before I left instructions for where they should place the takeout bag. When I'd finished, I collapsed onto the couch cushions with a sigh. "Well, that didn't take as long as I expected. Thanks for your help." "You're welcome," Maxine said as she sank into the armchair. "Let's take a look at those pictures before the food gets here." I grabbed my purse, pulling out the folder we'd found in the secret passage, along with the photographs I'd snatched. With them spread out across the coffee table, Maxine and I leaned closer to study them. My gaze scanned the various photographs, my pulse racing faster as I wondered if we'd be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Just as I started to identify some aspects of the figure in the first photograph, a loud rapping startled me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I snapped my gaze toward the noise. Someone in a ball cap hovered outside of my slider, poking a finger behind them. "Food's here. Don't want it to get cold." I waved at him. "Thanks a lot." He bobbed his head and took off, jogging around my deck toward the front of my house. "Geez, kid, you scared us half to death," Maxine said with a shake of her head as she rose to retrieve the food. I followed her, stopping in the kitchen to grab utensils and napkins. We settled at the table with our grub, and I found my eyes lingering on the pictures on the table a room away as I poked my fork into the cucumber wedge in my salad. "Were you able to get a good look at those pictures?" "Not really. That guy knocking ruined it." "Same," I answered. "I guess it's our after-dinner project, although I thought it looked like a female." "No, definitely a male," Maxine said with a shake of her head. I screwed up my face, leaning back in my chair. "No, wait, it's a woman." "Man," Maxine insisted. I clicked my tongue as I stabbed at my lettuce. "Well, we'll see when we go back in there which one of us is right." We finished off the rest of our dinner, grabbing our dessert and heading into the living room. I settled on the couch, and Maxine took her favorite armchair. "Now," I said as I poked the business end of my spoon at the picture, "that's a woman." Maxine jabbed the opposite end of her own spoon at the picture in front of her. "That's a man." I slid the picture closer to Maxine. "Woman. Look at the build, the hair blowing, the clothes. What man wears leggings?" I rest my case. Maxine's eyebrows furrowed as she stared at the photograph. I settled back into the pillows, a Cheshire cat grin on my features as I reveled in my win. A second later, she shook her head and slid her own photograph toward me. "Look at that build. The broad shoulders, the baggy pants, ball cap. That's a man." I stared down at the photograph, my features scrunching. "That's
Not the same person that was in my picture.
Maxine shook her head. Nope, these are 2 different people. She slid the 3rd photograph toward her. Maxine's eyes narrowed as she stared at the 3rd photo. Wait, this isn't the same person. She grabbed the 2nd photo, holding them side by side. My stomach flipped as I took them from her. 3 different people, I whispered, the weight of the discovery pressing down on me. I clicked my tongue. Are you kidding me? I'm not, Maxine said with a shake of her head as she shoved the photo my way. I pulled all 3 toward me. Dang it. Now, how are we going to tell who the murderer is? Not that we can identify anyone conclusively with these, but are there timestamps? I jabbed my spoon at her again before I set my dessert aside and collected the photographs. After a quick glance, I climbed off the couch with a groan. It's too small and blurry for me to read. I'll get my handy magnifying glass. I crossed to the kitchen and dug into my drawer for the magnifier I used to read the tiny print on recipes when I didn't want to find my reading glasses. Oh, look at you, looking like a real sleuth, Vic, Maxine teased as I settled on the couch and held the glass over the picture. Anything? Could they have printed these with any lower quality? I asked with a groan. I slid the magnifying glass closer and further away as I tried to make it out. Let me see. Maxine closed her empty container and set it on the coffee table, motioning for me to give her the photos. I passed them over, along with the magnifying glass. Here you go, honey. See if you can make it out. Maxine narrowed her eyes as she held the glass over it, her lips tugging into a frown. Ah, this is awful. Told you. It's not just my eyes, at least. No, it's pretty hard, but looks like the one with the woman said 10. That looks like a 1, then a 0. I climbed to my feet and peered over her shoulder. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, she said as she flipped the pictures. This one is the same. 1, 0. That doesn't help. We need more numbers than that. Maxine shuffled to the last photograph, shaking her head. Maybe not. This one looks like 2 1s in a row. 11. That's later than the other 2. This one must be of the murderer. Maxine bobbed her head as we shifted our gaze from the fuzzy timestamp to the figure. It was the man in the baseball cap. A man, we both said at the same time, exchanging a glance. I plopped onto the couch. Bill. Maxine slowly placed the pictures on the coffee table, her mouth hanging open as she shook her head. I can't believe it, but it makes sense. My head moved up and down slowly. It does. He wanted money. Donald Harris wouldn't give it to him. He got angry. He offs him. In your salon so he could stick it to you, Maxine added. Right, I said with a poke of my finger at her. I can't believe this either, but yet I can. Maxine collapsed back in her chair. What are we going to do now? I heaved a sigh, shaking my head. I don't know. Maybe we should turn that evidence over to the police that we found in the secret passage. Do you think they'll do anything with it? I don't know, I said with a shake of my head. Maybe they will. What if they don't? I drummed my fingers on the arm of the couch, chewing my lower lip as I tried to think through the best way to handle this. As I did, my phone jangled. I startled before I snatched it and stared down at the caller, my heart plummeting. With wide eyes, I glanced at Maxine, poking a finger at the display. It's him! It's Bill! Maxine gasped. Don't answer it! No, wait, answer it. Oh, I don't know. I firmed my jaw, my nostrils flaring as I tried to infuse myself with bravery. I'm going to answer it. I'm tired of this. It has to end. I swiped to take the call. Hello? Victoria. I'm glad you answered. So am I retorted. Maxine made a face at me, and I shrugged.
I didn't know why I said that, but it sounded tough, so I went with it. We need to talk. Yes, we do. Can I swing by your place? I shook my head at the phone even though he couldn't see me. No, Dice. We meet at the Salon. Come alone. Yeah. Okay, he answered. I rolled my eyes at myself. I wasn't supposed to tell him to come alone. I'll be there in 15. Don't be late. I jabbed at the phone, my hand shaking, ending the call before I shot a wide-eyed glance at Maxine. What had I just done? Had I agreed to meet with a murderer? Was I out of my mind? Chapter 14. Victoria, Maxine exclaimed, her eyes round as she stared at me. You can't go meet with Bill. He's the killer. I know, I said with a shake of my head. I don't know what got into me. You're sick of him targeting you? Yeah, I said with a nod and a poke of my finger. That. My breath turned shaky as I rose to my feet and paced. Oh, what am I going to do? Maxine leapt to her feet, stopping me in my tracks. You're going to go to that meeting. What? I exclaimed. I can't. You can. Take your bat. And me. I'll hide in the secret passage. I'll pop out if you need me. Do you have an extra bat I can take with me? I don't have an extra bat, but I think I have one of my ex's golf clubs in the back of my closet. That'll work, Maxine said with a bob of her head. I've got your back, Vic. Even with the comforting words, I couldn't stop my insides from twisting into a tight knot. What was I about to do? We'd better get there before Bill does so you can hide. Maxine nodded, grabbing her purse. Just get me that golf club and we'll head out. I grabbed my purse and slid my phone inside before I slung it over my shoulder and hurried back to my bedroom. After fighting through clothes I hadn't seen in a while, I managed to find the old 5-iron. I grabbed it, my heart still hammering, and headed back to the living room, thrusting it toward Maxine. She grabbed it, tossing it from hand to hand before she nodded, her lips drawn into a thin line. I can work with this. Grab the bat and let's go. I reached for it, wrapping my trembling fingers around the cool, polished wood. I slid my eyes closed, asking myself if I really wanted to do this. I didn't, but I had to. I had to put an end to this, save the reputation of my salon, and stop Bill from terrorizing me. I swallowed hard, raising my chin. I had to be brave. With the makeshift weapons in our hands, we left the house behind, making our way through the evening air to the shop. When we arrived, the salon was dark. I shifted my gaze around us as I unlocked the door, and we pushed into the dark space. A shiver snaked down my spine. This was probably really stupid. Before I could second-guess it, Maxine was already pressing the corners of the mirror in to open the secret passage. With her golf club in hand, she tugged the cupboard back. She spun to face me, giving me a reassuring nod. Just keep his back to the passage. That way I can pop out and crack him if I need to. I bobbed my head, unable to find my voice. She disappeared into the dark passage, and I pushed the cupboard almost closed, leaving it open just enough that Bill wouldn't suspect anything, but Maxine could pop out to rescue me. I really hoped she didn't need to do that, but Bill had killed once before. I raced over to grab my purse and rifle through it, grabbing my phone. A dark figure strode past my front window. With trembling hands, I toggled on the sound recorder and shoved the phone into the pocket of my leggings. I curled my fingers around my bat again as the door creaked open. A rush of cool evening air swirled past me as I inched toward my desk, intent on keeping it between us as I pushed him toward the center of the shop so Maxine was behind him. Bill stepped inside, his features taut. I lifted my chin, hiding the bat behind the front desk. Bill? Victoria? He said with a nod. I pointed a finger at the salon chairs, hoping he didn't notice my shaky hand. Why don't you have a seat? I'd rather stand. I'll bet you would, buddy, my brain said. He probably wanted to stay on his feet so he could stab me with a pair of scissors. My mind spiraled as I tried to figure out how to get him closer to Maxine. Look, Bill, I'd rather you be further away from me, so just go stand over there. To my surprise, he shuffled to the center of the salon, raising his hands in the air. Is this better? Yeah, that's good, I said with a nod, clearing my throat. Now, I don't know what you want from me, but... Well, that's the thing, Bill said, his gaze falling to the floor. I have a request. I don't think you'll grant it, but I'd really appreciate it if you'd listen to my case, think about it, and then respond. I swallowed hard, my palms turning sweaty. Bill was about to confess to the crime. I was going to have the murderer's confession on my phone. I could end this. Or would he end me first? Okay, I answered, my voice hoarse with tension. He shoved his hands into his pockets. I know what I did was horrible. Yeah, I said, my eyebrows shooting up. Was this guy for real? He murdered someone in my shop, and he was shrugging it off like he'd stolen a candy bar? He raised his gaze to me, his expression sheepish. I get it, I do, but I really want both your forgiveness and my job back? The last part of his request was phrased like a question. I screwed up my face. I don't think I'm the one who needs to forgive you. Yes, he had murdered the guy in my shop, but he needed to apologize to the man's family, not to me. He winced as he nodded. I know. I need to apologize to everyone. I get it, but I wanted to start with you, Victoria. It's your shop, and what I did was criminal, I said, my features pinching. He tugged a corner of his lips back. I mean, criminal is going a little far, but... A little far? I cried. Are you joking? My grip tightened on the bat. Was he confessing or stalling? The confusion gnawed at me, every word making me question my judgment. Could he really be this oblivious? Or was he trying to lure me in, make me lower my guard before he attacked? No? Bill asked, his eyes narrowing. I mean, my behavior was out of line, but not really criminal. My jaw flopped open. You cannot be standing here in front of me actually saying that you are not a criminal after what you did, Bill. Wait. Bill's features twisted with confusion. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I retorted. I'm talking about how I mouthed off and then threatened to sue you. Victoria, you're the best employer I've ever had. I didn't mean any of it. I was just... My ego was bruised. I slow blinked at his explanation. What did you think I was talking about? Bill asked. The murder. Bill, you killed that guy in my shop. What? Bill shrieked. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. I saw a man on the surveillance footage just before the guy was murdered, and I know you went to him for money to open a rival salon, and he turned you down. I know all of it, Bill. I know you did it. Bill stared at me like I had 3 heads. I slid the bat in front of me. His eyes went wide as he glanced at it. Victoria, you've got it all wrong. I didn't kill that guy. I shook my head. I don't believe you. I think you did, and I'm turning you into the cops. They can sort it out. Whatever you think you know, it's wrong. I didn't do it, Victoria. Look, I can prove it. I have an alibi. An alibi? Bill bobbed his head, poking a finger at his pocket. I'm going to get my phone. My heart thudded hard against my ribs, my features a warning. He slid the phone out and turned the display toward me. He toggled it on and swiped to open it, going to his camera. A series of photographs popped up.
He pressed on one and thrust the phone forward. I spotted Bill in the middle of several other people. It was Dungeons and Dragons night at the library. I was there until 2 in the morning with several people. We have pictures, and about 5 other people will tell you I was there all night. My stomach twisted into a knot as I stared at picture after picture of people surrounding Bill. Well, before I could get another word out, Maxine sprang from behind the secret passage, her features aghast. Is this for real? Bill whipped around to face Maxine, his features turning shocked. Maxine? Are you carrying a golf club? Yeah, and I'm not afraid to use it either, Bill, so put the phone on the chair and back away. Bill stared at her, confusion etched into his features for a moment, before he slid the phone onto the middle chair of the salon and backed away with his arms raised. Maxine snatched it, glancing at the pictures, before she set it down, sliding her gaze to me. It's legit. I looked it up while he was talking. It was D&D night at the library. I collapsed into my desk chair, shaking my head. I can't believe this. Gosh, I'm sorry, Bill. I really thought you were the one. Bill crossed back to the chair and grabbed his phone. How could you think that about me? All the evidence added up. We found the file with all the information about your request for money, Maxine said. And the fact that Donald Harris owns part of the bookshop, antique shop, and Evie's, I added. Maxine nodded. Right, and then we saw the surveillance footage from that night. 2 women entering the shop at 10, then a man. The man had to be the killer. You, I answered. You were the only man. I stopped, my eyes going wide as my lips parted. What is it, Vic? Maxine asked. He wasn't the only man here involved with Donald Harris. There was one other man in that file. Maxine's brows furrowed. The mayor? I jabbed a finger at her. Bingo. He was in the file. He fits the description of the man in the picture, too. Maxine shook her head. No, the man in the pic had shaggier hair. I just saw Reginald at the diner when we picked up the food. His hair isn't that long. Because he just got it cut. Remember, Stacy said he stopped in the other day, unexpected. He stopped here to snoop around. Probably for those manuals or any evidence he left behind when he killed Donald Harris. It all fits. Yes, it does, a new voice said from my doorway. Too bad after all that hard work to solve the case, you'll have to die, Victoria. Reginald Sinclair stood in the doorway, his usual composed expression twisted into something colder, darker. The gun in his hand was steady, his eyes narrowed in cold calculation. I'd figured it out, but moments too late. Reginald Sinclair was the murderer, and now he was going to kill me. Chapter 15. My heart rose into my throat as I stared at the gun, my breathing coming in shallow gasps. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I wondered how good of a shot he was. He was pretty close to me. I figured he probably could hit me at least, if not kill me. Nausea swept over me as I wondered if this would be my last day on Earth. I rose from my seat, my fingers still tight around the bat that I carried. Look, Reggie, you don't need to do this. Oh, I think I do, he answered. No, I said with a vehement shake of my head. And you especially don't have to hurt Maxine or Bill. They are innocent in this. They still know, Reginald growled. They know way too much. I tried to calm my shaky breath, desperate to stop my hand from shaking as I kept my eyes trained on him. I let my fingers find the receiver of my desk phone and carefully lifted it, trying to be as subtle as possible. With a hard swallow, I lowered it to the desk, covering the noise with my response to Reginald. No one's going to say anything. I mean, there's no reason for us to tattletale on you. Although, maybe you could tell us why you did it. We never guessed it was you. I carefully dialed the number for emergency services as I spoke, before I tapped the volume button so no one would hear the operator answer. Not even me. I just had to hope and pray they figured out where I was and sent someone flying here right away before we all ended up like Donald Harris. No one's going to say anything, huh? Reginald asked as he shuffled forward. I left the bat behind, stepping around the desk to hide the off-the-hook phone. Nope, I promised. I don't buy it, he snapped. You'll be calling the cops the minute I walk out that door. I shook my head, my voice trembling. There's no reason for us to do that. You're no threat to us. In fact, as the mayor, it would be nice if you owed us a favor, you know? Ah, so blackmail's your game, huh? Reginald poked the weapon closer to me. Not all. Just saying it's nice to have friends in high places. I mean, listen, this Harris guy was meeting a bunch of people in my shop. How long before he brought trouble down around my ears? Might be a good thing that you offed him. I tried to shrug nonchalantly, but I wasn't certain if I pulled it off. Harris was trouble, he answered. I nodded at him. Exactly. You did us a favor. His features twisted into a frightening grimace. And you're all trouble, too. We are not, I exclaimed. Look, Reggie, you've got to cut us a break here. You can't kill us all. The best you can get is maybe 2 of us. At least one of us is going to get away. I know if you shoot Bill first, I'd run. Hey, Bill said, his features pinching. Why would he shoot Bill first? Why not shoot you first, or Maxine? Because you stand the best chance of overpowering him, so he should shoot you first. You're the biggest threat. Maxine has a golf club in her hands. She's the biggest threat. Hey, Maxine exclaimed. Nice way to throw me under the bus, Bill. Real gentlemanlike. No matter who he shoots first, I'm running, I said. And you won't catch me. I'm fast. You are not, Bill said, his features scrunching as he shook his head. I am so. I'm on my feet all day. I'm used to darting around here. I can make it out of here no problem. Better shoot her first, Bill said, poking a finger at me. My jaw dropped open as he tried to convince Reginald to shoot me. Sure, I'd done it to him, but that was different. I can't believe you'd say that, just because we weren't getting along. Look, Reg, Bill said, running a shaky hand through his hair. I'm on your side here. I had beef with Harris, too. He wouldn't loan me the money to open a new salon. He was a jerk. What did he do to you anyway? Harris was a jerk, Reginald answered, his head wagging back and forth. He pulled his campaign contributions because I wouldn't give him a government contract. I raised my eyebrows. So the mayor couldn't be bought. I was impressed. Why didn't he just bid on it? Bill asked. Reginald pressed his lips together, his gaze going to the floor. I'd already promised the bid to someone else. Well, there went his principles right out the window. What did I expect from a guy who offed someone in my salon with a pair of scissors? So, in other words, Maxine said, you and Donald Harris fought over money, couldn't come to an agreement, so what, you stabbed him? Donald Harris deserved what he got. We didn't just argue over money. He threatened to expose me for being corrupt. Do you know what that does to a political career? I'd be finished. Done. No more mayor, no higher offices, everything I'd worked for. He snapped his fingers. Gone. You could have weathered the storm, Maxine said. Doubt it, Reginald growled. I would have been a has-been. I had to kill him to protect my career. Of course you did, I said, my fingers tightening around the bat as I figured we wouldn't be able to keep him talking for much longer. And it didn't look like the police were going to be here lickety-split. We were on our own. We'd have to take matters into our own hands. And now, I have to do what I have to do with you people. He narrowed his eyes, swinging his gun to point at me as I tried to back away. Leave her alone, Maxine shouted, but I had already raised my bat over my shoulder, ready to defend myself. My heart hammered hard as I considered where to aim my bat. Did I try to knock the gun from his hands, or did I go straight for a knock on the head and hope he passed out cold? Before I could decide, police burst through my front and back doors at the same time, swarming toward us. Freeze! Drop that weapon! An officer shouted. My bat clattered to the floor as I dropped it. Across the salon, Maxine let go of her golf club. The mayor swung his weapon toward the encroaching police before his features twisted. He dropped the gun on the floor and raised his hands in the air. The cops raced to him, forcing him to his knees and handcuffing his hands behind his back. Maxine raced over to me, and we both clung to each other.
Thank goodness they got here in time. But who called them?
I did, I answered. I took the phone off the hook and dialed 911 while we kept him talking. Thank goodness they got here in the nick of time. I want an attorney, the mayor called as they hauled him out of my shop. I shook my head, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that the mayor had murdered someone in my shop. Excuse me, I called to the detective. I have some evidence you may need. Thanks, he answered. But we got most everything from the emergency call. Great job getting him to admit what he'd done. I bobbed my head. Yeah, any time. Paramedics will be in to check you out. I hope you all are okay. We're fine. Thank goodness, I said, breathing a sigh of relief. Maxine and I had solved a murder. I still couldn't believe it, but we'd done it. We'd made a few mistakes along the way, but we'd been able to solve the crime. The town would be safer now because of it. We'd made an impact, and I was proud of that. 1 month later. I waved at Agatha as I headed past her shop toward my salon. After word got out that I'd cracked the case, I became somewhat of a local celebrity. My appointment book was bursting at the seams. I could barely handle the volume of incoming clients. Evie had taken a hit after word of her affair, along with her ties to the deceased, got out. I bought a stake in her salon to help her out, and we split the clients, giving them 2 options in 2 different locations to serve the town's hairstyling needs. I also made her go to a few classes, so she stopped messing up people's hair colors. During the course of the town gossip, it came out that the big secret that Agatha had threatened Bea over was nothing more than a few antiques that weren't really antiques. She'd fudged on a few of the dates of origin to make some of the antiques look more appealing to people. After all, a desk from colonial times was way more interesting than one from the 1970s. As far as Bill, I hired him back, we put our differences aside, and he became the 2nd best colorist in Crystal Cove. Second to me, of course. With my salon thriving, I planned a brief vacation for myself and Maxine. We cleared our books for a long weekend. As I pushed into the salon, I pulled the brochure out from inside of my purse, staring at the sprawling, brooding mansion. A weekend at this place. What could be better? This has been Mousse and Murder, Affair with Hair, Cozy Mysteries, Book 1. Written by Nellie H. Steele. Narrated by Maya Roberts. Copyright 2024 by Melissa Marie Sovak. Production copyright by A Novel Idea Publishing, LLC.